it keeps me around the country, and it's just I just love stepping into these rooms, specifically when they're small like this, because we can actually have an intimate conversation. It's the difference of speaking to 10 people or 10,000. It's I'm actually able to look at Steve and look him in the eye and ask him a question, get a response back, or look at Ken and do the same thing. And so I really want us to take advantage of this today, because this is very seldom that we have the opportunity to actually have a deep conversation that can be actually solving a problem for you that you may have come in with, that you quite honestly may not have even known that you actually have. And so I love how we started today with the concept of vulnerability, because we're really going to tap into today how mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stress, real, perceived, positive, negative, future, past, present stresses, the body actually doesn't know the difference. And there's a cost. Your body keeps the score. And as we continue to move into this, I think it's going to generate some awareness. And so before we start, has anybody ever had a paradigm shift in their life? A paradigm shift, something that like drastically, you thought it was one way and boom, it drastically changed and you saw it somewhere else. Yeah, Steve, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, in my 20s, I had a very painful divorce, which changed the way I think about a lot of things.
Yeah, so
nothing to do with my body, just life.
Yeah, no, I'm just any paradigm shift, anything, anytime, anything. Yeah,
Kids.
You having kids? Amen, amen. Very good. What else? Yeah.
My stepdad passed, and I just rapidly took over business.
There you
It
go.
was a
Major paradigm shift. Yep. Anybody else? Any other examples?
Well, my same example, I was divorced in my
Got it.
20s.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and these paradigm shifts that happen in our life redefine trajectories. And today, I'm hoping my mission, the reason I come into these rooms, is that there's a paradigm shift in how we see our health. This is not a eat less, move more talk. This is about what are we actually doing? What's happening inside of our body? What's happening that we are so unaware of? And in order to hit this paradigm shift today, I need two things from us. Number one is I need participation. This isn't a sage from the stage. I want to be a guide from the side, walking you all through something. So can we, yes, we're in participation. I saw it early on. We're good to go. I like this group already. Number two is I need us to play in what I call the 90%. There's 5% of things that we know. There's 5% of things we know we don't know. But there's this massive blue ocean, and everybody obviously got the blue memo today. But there's this massive blue ocean of 90% of things that we don't know. And I need us to be okay thinking that, hey, there's probably a lot that I don't know in this space that I actually could know. And if I knew it, I'd actually be better off. Can we play in the 90?
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And so, again, when we come in here, I always love helping you guys know where we're going, because I hate coming to a presentation or into a workshop or into something. It's like, okay, like I have no idea where we're going. I have no idea where this is actually leading me. And so where we're going to start is, how did we get here? Like, not how did we get here to this location, in what vehicle did I drive, but like, how did we get here? Number one, as a society, as a culture. But then number two, how did you wind up here? Like, how did you, in this sense of life, end up in this position that you're currently in? And then number two is really dive into understand the 4 metrics that are going to help you take ownership of your health and run your body just like your business. I'm sure you've seen this title a couple times now, but like, what does this mean? And even Gary said this morning, run our body like our business. What does that exactly mean? And it means running it with the same level of intentionality, the same level of purpose, the same level of data-driven guidance, so that it's no more guessing, no more wondering, no more throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, but rather knowing exactly what Ken, exactly what Gary, exactly what Alana, exactly what Rob needs, because each and every one of them, yes, they're human beings, but they all need something different for the certain season of their life that they're in. And so what does this look like for us as we go forward? And so I want to start with a question, because when I say health and performance, what comes up for you? What immediately pops into your mind space? Health and performance, a word or a phrase?
Exercise.
Exercise. Awesome.
Say fitness.
Yeah.
Exercise, fitness, great. What else?
Ability,
Ability. Expand on that.
ability to do things, flexibility, agility,
Movement.
movement,
Sleep. Oh, yeah.
Sleep. What else?
measurements,
Measurement.
longevity,
Longevity. Good. Give me 3 more.
Fitness. That's kind of a big one.
oh, there it is.
Yep.
The food we eat,
Nutrition. Nutrition.
Yeah.
Great. Health and performance. What else comes up for you? What else spurs inside of you?
goals,
Goals. Great.
For me, the negative side is drugs. People rely on drugs too much.
Pharma. Anything else on here that's like deeply pressing on somebody? They're like, I want this up there. Or is that kind of like hit on some of it?
Because performance is up there, I keep thinking of like commitment.
Great.
Yeah.
Commitment.
All in the back.
Same.
Something I'm lacking. Why is that not here? So good. I love it. These are great. And having spoke about 450 times over the course of the last 3 years, having presented to just shy of about 800,000 people over that last same time, I've asked this same question. And the crazy part is, or maybe it's not so crazy at this point, is that about 80% of these things are what people always say. They never change. They're the same thing. But these all have one very simple thing in common. And it's what the world has ultimately caused us to do. Is that all of these things are outcomes. They're outcomes. They're results driven. Oh, you know what? I have my health when I'm exercising regularly. Oh, you know what? I have my health and I'm a picture of this when I'm committed and I'm motivated. When I'm able to move, when I've got my sleep, when I'm sleeping well, when I'm creating this health and longevity feeling. They're outcomes. And so just like this, I asked you on your sheet, what does health look like to you? Well, for some of you, it's like, hey, I want to more focus on health. For some of you, hey, I probably need to eat less. You know what? One thing that I would want to change, belly fat. I want to get rid of that. You know what? Sleep 8 hours a night. That's what I want. Cut out any stress eating and junk foods. Only eat single ingredient foods with the main goal to lose my belly. A better plan around food. A better plan for eating habits. Eat late at night. Men's league hockey 3 nights per week. Making time for strength training. All these things, we see them. They're not goals. They're outcomes. And the downside is that when we focus on outcomes, we forget about the process. Good morning. How are you?
good morning.
When we only focus on the outcomes, we forget about the process. And when we come back to the fact that this is a process, that this is a system, the outcomes actually happen as a consequence. And so when we sit into this and we think about this, hey, so what is your biggest pain point? Consistency. Consistency is, yeah, go ahead.
Are these quotes from our survey or just general?
No, this is all you. It's all y'all. Consistency, balance. Hey, when I focus on eating healthy to trim some weight, I typically succeed. I lose 8 to 15 pounds. My biggest pain point is transitioning to a diet that maintains that reduced weight. Instead, continually eating healthy, maintaining my weight. I splurge too often, treat myself and often look back and slowly put the weight back on. I love this quote because guess what? I love this quote. Guess what? Guess why? Because when you all of a sudden don't have the outcomes, it's like, oh, health wasn't made for me. Health isn't something I can get. Health is for that guy or that girl, not for me. Health is actually not something I want in this season of my life. It's something that obviously I can't have. And it conjures up these beliefs that actually hold us back from what is rightfully ours to begin with. And so when we sit into this, the reason that this is a passion of mine and the reason that I'm here today and the reason that I've dedicated my life to this is because I was the person that you might look at now and go, man, this guy's got his health. This is the guy that like, I can never be. But in fact, I've never had my health. I was the fat kid. I was the fat kid that always made fun of. Fat kid doing VO2 max testing at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old because they tried to figure out why I was fat and overweight. The fat kid became an anorexic kid. The anorexic kid that was fearful of food, was fearful of was obsessive about exercise, didn't really understand his body. The fat kid became an anorexic kid. The anorexic kid became a depressed kid. The depressed kid became an addicted kid. And ultimately, as I was very blessed and fortunate to be able to come down to the States on a hockey scholarship, born and raised in Canada, and dedicated my educational path to try to figuring out the answers as to why. Why did this happen? Why was this occurring? Because every doctor I went to iridologists, I went to nutritionists, I went to psychologists, I went to nutritional counselors, I went to you name it. But everybody saw me as broken. Everybody saw me as I had a problem. Everybody saw me as needing something to be fixed. And when I came down to the States, I started to do, I did 2 undergraduate degrees, exercise science and nutrition. I then went from there and did my master's degree in exercise physiology with concentration in sports performance. From there, I went and did my postgraduate doctoral work in heart rate variability and sleep. From there, I bounced over into the functional world in functional medicine and massage therapy. And I say all of that to say, not that, oh my gosh, this guy's educated, but no, I couldn't find the answers I was looking for. Because everyone would give me a textbook and say, hey, this is what happens in the body. But I was like, that's not what I experienced. That's not what got me well. And in fact, that's actually a lot of what you're teaching me is actually what got me sick in the first place. And so as I started to lean into this, I started to see that each and every one of us was individuals. And if we actually stopped focusing on the outcomes that we're seeking, and we identified a process that the body was actually curated to heal. You see, we're like 13 miracles in this room. We were designed and created as 2 cells that continually multiplied to now be 30 trillion cells, each one of us, approximately 30 trillion cells. Every 90 days, about 400 million of those cells completely renew, become completely restored and completely brand new. That means that in a 5-year span, we can go from being the most unhealthy person to a completely brand new cellular human being. That to me, every time I say it, is absolutely shocking and a miracle. And so if we knew what to do as our body's naturally trying to heal itself, and we can put ourselves in an environment, in an ethos, in an ecosystem, in a process, we can actually heal anything else that's going on. And so this whole thought process brought me into the NHL at 25 years old and became the youngest director of health and performance in the league. Started to implement a lot of these things. Guys were recovering faster. Guys were feeling better. Our injury rates and sickness rates were the lowest in the league for 9 out of 11 years. And I started to get this notoriety. I started to get travel around the world, working with a lot of the best clubs in elite sport. And as I turned 29, for the first time, I started to have fatigue, brain fog. I'd bloat every time I ate anything. I'd fall asleep. I couldn't stay asleep. I had this crippling anxiety that I seemingly couldn't shake. And I'll throw this picture up because this was January of my 29th year. I turned 29 in June. This was January. And I had just gone to my first, I'll skip one more. I just gone to my first CrossFit games and just completed a triathlon, basically just to say like I was in good shape. And I was feeling this, and everybody would say, hey, Justin, you're the picture of health. But rather, I felt like I was dying inside. I went to all the best docs in the league. They ran all my blood work. They said, no, everything's great. Everything's good. I ended up going to, again, a functional doc, did about $5,000 worth of tests, gave me about $3,000 worth of supplements, said, see me in 60 days. And I came back in 60 days and I said, man, I'm worse off than I was when I started. And I was in Chicago. We just played Blackhawks. I still remember I'd gone to sleep and it was like a bolt of lightning struck me And it was like God whispered in my ear, why don't you do the same thing for your athletes? Or why don't you do the same thing for yourself that you do for your athletes? And so the next morning, started to look at my heart rate variability, VO2 max, cellular deficiencies, sleep quality, the same thing that I've been measuring. Everything was about 25% of where it should have been. And immediately I said, my gosh, my body's trying to communicate something. It's not that I'm broken. It's not that I need fixing. It's not that actually something is wrong. It's that, hey, my body's trying to communicate that it needs a little bit of help. Ended up doing a colonoscopy and endoscopy, found 4 cancerous polyps in my colon and a cancerous ulcer in my stomach, and was told that I wouldn't see 35. And it was at that moment that I cried out and I just prayed. I said, why is this happening to me? I've never had my health, but yet I'm seen as the health expert to so many. And God just said, I need you to stop serving the audience that you want to and start serving the audience that I called you to. That was when I stepped away, started to own it, realizing this wasn't an athlete issue, but a human issue. Miraculously, a year later, cancer-free, thriving, being able to really just now give others the exact same examples of kind of where we're at. And so as I sat back and started to go through this and look at this, I need us to understand the process of where our country has come from and kind of how connecting the dots has really led us down this dark path. And so back in 1909, there was something called the Flexner Report. And the Flexner Report was a document signed by John D. Rockefeller, basically stating that anything that saw the body as a holistic, integrated unit was pseudoscience. And rather that the body is just a series of random parts put together that can be cut, manipulated, surgically repaired, or replaced without any type of negative side effect. As he signed that report, it basically shut down 50% of medical colleges that were operating at that time and put forth a $50 million donation to someplace or somebody by the name of Johns Hopkins to start Johns Hopkins Medical Center, which even today is still one of the premier medical institutions in terms of research, in terms of education in our country. And so along the way, that Flexner Report still, again, did not allow certain alternative medicine schools to actually get made and actually get started. In 1945, there was a memorandum that came out by the USDA that said, eat more corn, oats, rye, fish, poultry, fruits, vegetables, and potatoes that are either baked, broiled, or boiled. We've ever heard that before? Never. Because we're going to send all the meats, the sugars, and the fats overseas to the army and the military and our adversary and our allies. Why? Because those things keep. They're calorically dense. They can keep them energized. Here's the crazy part. Between 1945 and 1970, the average lifespan of an American increased 15%, or pardon me, 15 years, where the average lifespan of an American between 1970 and 2024 increased 5. And so I sit back and go, well, why? Why is that? Why was that the case? Well, 1960, the invention of the pill is another big date that we need to know and understand. You might be like, why is this important? Because this was the date. This was the date that the government, the pharmaceutical companies, was able to convince the American people that you could take a pill for a long period of time and have zero impact on the body. And females, we know that that is not true. And so this is a critical moment in history that we have to understand, because this is no different than what we're going to learn about here and here. In 1980, there was two men by the name of R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris. Anybody ever heard of those two men? Everyone laughs. 2 guys that controlled the majority of the tobacco and cigarette industry. Well, in 1970, do you know what their marketing idea was behind tobacco and cigarettes?
That was healthy for you.
So they didn't outright say that, but he said that they're healthy for you. 1970, they put a campaign out. It was with Harry the Camel, and made him like real fun guy. And it basically said that smoking cigarettes or chewing tobacco was a great hunger suppressant and thus a great way to lose weight.
Which may be true, right?
Potentially not wrong. However,
There you go.
very slightly manipulative.
Yes.
And so we come back to this, and these two guys in 1983 got a phone call. Surgeon General said, hey, you know what? Morris, Phillips, we're seeing some data that kind of concerns us, and we're going to make you slap onto all of your products that tobacco and cigarettes actually cause cancer and early death. And while these two businessmen were like, this probably isn't awesome for business, we're probably not going to see an uptick in purchases, so we need to do something else. What did they do? They went and bought up 73% of the food industry. Nabisco primarily, Kraft secondarily, and then ultimately started Kellogg's. And so we start to think about this process, think about what happened here, think about this whole thing. And what did they end up doing? They made food cheaper. They made food more addictive. They made food more chemically dense. And at the same time, took the same thing that worked in the 1970s into the 1980s and said low-calorie foods are a great way to lose weight. And so we started the focus on calories, not ingredients. In 1986, they made a $20 million donation to the USDA, and they said, hey, we will continue to keep giving you money. It will continue to keep flowing if you allow us to make the guidelines as to what American people should be eating. And that's when we started the food pyramid. We see a direct, it's wild, right?
Yeah.
We see a direct correlation to when the moment that the food pyramid was created to the rapid onset of chronic illness and disease in America. And so we start to pass over this, and now today, 98% of the food that we eat, 98% of the food that you walk into the grocery store, that you purchase, that you, clothes that you're wearing, the soaps and lotions and potions that you use are controlled by 10 major companies, 10 major organizations. And I'll pull this slide up in a second so you can see it. And again, me, as I was going through this, I literally spent a year deep diving into this, all the books, all the literature, all the science, all the studies, all the crazy, what's that word? It's escaping me. Yes, but what is people, conspiracy theories. I went and looked at all the conspiracy theorists and went into every single one of them saying, no, you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid, you're a conspiracy guy, I'm not about conspiracies, but I can't ignore the facts. We were talking about it up here this morning with your trip over into Europe, and somebody else was talking about history and how a lot of Germany, they accept the facts as to what's real. And in our country, we just like to deny the facts. And so when we start looking at the facts, facts don't lie. And so we started to see here, and I'll all of the integration, and I'll pull this up as well, and I'll dive deeper into this. But you start to follow the money, and you look at the integration between, or the conflict of interest between big pharma, government, and the institutions that are supposed to be putting out great work that ultimately set forth the legalities of what goes into our schools, what goes into our prisons, what is ultimately funded by the government. And it's only when there's conflict of interest that pizza can be a vegetable. It's only when there's conflict of interest that Pop-Tarts are more healthy and nutritionally dense than steak. And it's only in this when we can feed our children plastic and be considered nutrients. It's like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to come back to this for a moment, because in the 1960s, the invention of the pill, it created the change of what we ultimately stand for. And from 1909 to 1980, 95% of prescriptions that were written were for acute items. You got malaria? Here you go. We'll solve that for you. You've got Hep B? Boom, here you go. The medical miracles that we saw really almost stopped in 1980. Because in 1980, to today, it is completely flipped, completely inversed, 100% rotated over into where 95% of prescriptions that are written are for chronic illnesses. And so we come back and we look at this. I wanted to go
Explain that more, like chronic.
So prescriptions that were written from 1909 to 1980 were all for acute purposes. Something that, hey, you know what, Steve, I'm going to put you on something for a week and it's going to clear that right up. 95% of the prescriptions that are written today are for things that, hey, Steve, you know what, I'm going to put you on this and let's just stay on this for life. This is going to keep you going. This is going to keep you rolling. This is going to keep you well. This is going to keep you able. This is going to keep you here on this earth. This is going to keep you just heart a ticking. And so we start to look at it, and I always come back to where does the money flow? That's where the attention goes. And so the pharmaceutical industry spent a record amount of over $372 million on lobbying in 2022, making them the top spending industry in federal lobbying efforts. You bounce to the second one. Study published in the JAMA Health Forum. Between 2010 and 2019, pharmaceutical, this one just like bothers me in depth. Pharmaceutical companies received an estimated $187 billion in funding from the NIH. The NIH is the governing body of the government that's supposed to keep us, the people, at the forefront, protecting us. Any of the pharmaceutical companies that received a penny of the $187 billion, get this, conflict of interest, maybe. Anyone that got a penny of this $187 million, 99.4 of those drugs got approved. So that means, hey, Steve, you know what? I'm going to give you $100. I want you to go cook up something in your garage and we're going to pass that. Why? Because the money always came back to JAMA or to the NIH. And so when you think about this, having some level of NIH funded research contributing to their development, this translates to an average of about 1.3 billion in funding per drug targeted for basic research alone. Now you go to 2023. Okay, we know that there's something going on in pharmaceuticals. Now let's take a look at agriculture and what's happening there. Well, political spending from the food and agricultural sector increased with a record of 178 million spent in 2023 alone. You come over here, you look at Monsanto. Monsanto donated $14 million to Texas A&M agricultural research. Texas A&M, the number one just preeminent industry or institution in our country for agriculture. Do you think any one of these studies that came out of here said, oh, you know what, glyphosate's probably an issue? Oh, you know what, those sprays that we're putting on everything? Probably not awesome. No way. Not a chance. And then all of a sudden you bounce down here. And do you know who the biggest donor to the American Heart Association is? Nestle. Do you know who the biggest donor to the American Diabetes Association is? PepsiCo. Do you know what Coke did in revenue last year? Guess?
100 billion.
Just about. But 93. Do you know what percentage? Again, everybody hold on to your shorts here. Do you know what percentage was from government funded, government aided, government sanctioned initiatives?
A lot.
61%. Anybody in business want 61% of guaranteed money that you don't have to perform for? Yeah, sign me up. And so this is where we ultimately get all of our recommendations, all of our guidelines for what goes in our jails, what goes in our prisons, what goes in our schools, what goes in our churches, what goes in our institutions, what goes in our hospitals. And so don't think for a second, did anybody see the Tufts study that came out? The Tufts study, look it up, you can Google it, just say Tufts nutrition study. And it basically shows this new grading system. And when you look at the grading system, that's where your Lucky Charms, your Pop-Tarts, your different cereals actually show that they're more healthy than steak or eggs or any of these types of things. Tufts Nutritional Institution is, again, one of the preeminent, one of the golden standard institutions in our country. And people were like laughing about that. But why were they laughing about that? Because basically what that did, as soon as that study passed, it gave the government accessibility to say, oh no, we're not putting scrambled eggs into our schools. We're going to keep Pop-Tarts and cereals because they're nutritionally dense for our children. So this is why this stuff matters. This is why this is like not okay. It's not just what's happening here. It's what's happening to our kids and what's happening in the places that we don't have control over. These are the 10 biggest companies, controlling about 98%. And I've got a podcast. If you love diving deep into nutrition and diving deep into health and longevity, I've had amazing guests on. Peter and I have done some really cool things. Peter T, I know you're talking about his book. Andrew Huberman, another one that we've done a lot with. But I had a guest on the other day. He has this child, or he had this niece, pardon me. And his niece was suffering seizures. She was about 2 years old. They brought her into the hospital. The seizures started to increase from monthly to weekly to daily. And he said, hey, can you show me what you're feeding her through a feeding tube? And they said, yeah, we're feeding her the normal baby food, the baby food that we have here. It's bananas, sweet potatoes, and apples. He's like, okay, great. Can you, they said, does he have any, or does she have any food allergies to those? He's like, not that I know of. Can you show me the ingredients list? Well, he brought the ingredients list out, and sweet potatoes, apples, bananas were number 3, 4, and 16 on the ingredients list of 22 different ingredients.
What was one? Artificial sweetener?
I don't know. He didn't say. But you looked at this, and he took it. He went home. He created his own concoction. He came back. He said, I want you to feed her this. They're like, bro, this isn't like a backyard cafeteria. This is a hospital. Like, you can't do this. Got lawyers involved. About a week later, they were able to switch those over, but he had to literally sign a paper that said if his niece passed away, that they would take no legal action. Within 2 weeks, seizures had stopped. She was home. And somebody who says she wouldn't see out the year is now, she's 5 years old. You come back to this. The brand of that food was Gerber Baby Food, owned by Nestle. Nestle gives, donates, government funded to all hospital institutions. That's how this thing works. So we start to look at this, even the things that we wash our clothes with, the Tide, the Dawn, the Cascade, the Gain, the Joy, the chemicals. Our skin is the biggest organ on our body, absorbing all of these different items, absorbing all of these different things. I did another podcast on the water quality just this past week, and it's incredible. When I started to do some home tests of looking at the quality of water from our shower, from the things that we're washing in our hands, typically I do a keynote. I'll have 2 glasses of water, and I'll just ask someone to go grab tap water. I'll pour 2 glasses of water, one like this. I'll put my hand in one. I'll drop chlorine drops in the other. It'll turn yellow, showing a presence of chlorine. I'll take my hand out. I'll put the chlorine drops in this one. It stays clear. What does that show?
Chemicals on your skin. It pulled your skin, pulled the chemical out.
My skin pulled the chemical out of the water. And so we start to see this, and we start to see things differently. We start to realize that things we do are actually having an impact and causing the results, the outcomes that we're realizing, where the reality is that the life expectancy in the US is 25% less than every other developed country in the world, while happening at twice the cost. And so until we realize that illness is the most profitable industry in the United States, and that healthcare is the fastest growing industry year over year, it's that point that we can start to answer the question why. It's not AI, it's not space exploration, it's healthcare. And these stats, these data points are real. Does anybody know the difference between health span and lifespan? Lifespan is the years that you have on this earth, the moment you're born to the moment you pass away. Health span is that intermediary point that you now have to have a surgery, you're on a pharmaceutical, just to maintain life. Well, this is the reality. Lifespan in America for men, 73.8. For women, 78.1. The lowest it's ever been in the past 300 years for both men and women. We've seen a 6-year decrease in lifespan in both men and women. So it's not a COVID thing. Health span for men, 62.8. Women, 65.1. When you look at these numbers, it's like, okay, cool. I maybe resonate with this. But then I asked them, I went deeper. I said, like, why? Why is there a gap? Why is there all of a sudden 11 years for men and 13 years for women that we see this drop? Because it's in those years that you become valuable. Because it's in those years that you become an asset. It's in those years that you all of a sudden are paying for something, or insurance is paying for something that now all of a sudden you're stuck on for life. And what we fail to recognize as a society is that same thing has now gone away from pharmaceuticals over into the hormone therapies, the testosterones, the different type of alternative medicines, that if we actually go deep into who owns the testosterone companies, who owns the hormone replacement therapy companies, 97% of them are pharma companies. And so it's a different mask, but the same play. Because we're living in a rigged system. And so when we think about this, I come back to the concept of why do we fail? Why do we fail? And so I went into ChatGPT and I said, ChatGPT, if you were Satan, how would you steal somebody's health? So I got chilled reading this. I wouldn't approach stealing someone's health with obvious destruction. It would be through subtle, insidious, and consistent actions that would encourage neglect, complacency, and poor decisions. And so when we think about this, as business owners, as tip of the spear people that I love to serve. Why do I love to serve people in this room? Because you are the ones who have said, hey, I'm accepting the challenge. There's a mission on my heart. There's a purpose on my heart that I want to go turn into something of reality that's going to have an impact for other people. If we believe that ultimately that we have exponential growth in what we do, and that today our purpose, today our mission, today our business is the smallest it will ever be, that means that if we're here for 5, 10, 15, 20 more years, that it's going to be exponentially more impactful, that we're going to touch and reach that many more people. All of a sudden, if Ken's not here tomorrow, do you think more men are going to go have freedom on Saturdays in the summer on that dock? No. If he's here for 10 more years, how many more families is he going to touch? How many more people is he going to impact? But instead, the way that our health becomes decayed is, number one, create busyness and distraction. Anyone?
100%.
Make people feel like they don't have time to prioritize their health. Flood their schedules with sometimes really good things. Flood their schedules with work, family, endless distractions. So they believe self-care is impractical, or we're selfish. Number two, normalize unhealthy habits. Anyone? Make poor nutrition, lack of sleep, sedentary lifestyles feel normal and acceptable. Market ultra-processed foods as convenient and harmless. Glorify hustle culture that minimizes rest. Promote entertainment, keeps them glued to their screens. Foster addiction to quick fixes. Anyone? Oh, that supplement, oh, that diet. Oh, you know what? January 1st, might as well go on the Whole30. That's a good one. Convince pills, diets, shortcuts will solve their health problems. Keep them focused on immediate gratification rather than sustainable habits that lead to results. Plant seeds of doubts and hopelessness. Anyone? You can't do that. You've tried before. You failed. You've already failed too many times. This is just how life is now. This is what 40, 50, 60, 70 feels like. Create a mindset of defeat. Encourage comparison and shame. You know what? You can never look like that person. Thus, don't even try. Make health overwhelming. Anyone? Contradictory information on health, fitness, and nutrition. Confuse them with endless options so they feel paralyzed and do nothing.
You got this from AI?
I did. Undermine spiritual and emotional resilience. Encourage people to ignore the spiritual and emotional roots of their struggles. Disconnect them from their creator, their purpose, and the deeper meaning behind their health. Isolate them from community. Convince people they don't need support or accountability. Make them feel alone in their struggles. Removing encouragement, mentorship, shared growth, and outcomes that come from a supportive community. And because of this, what happens is we don't have this death and disease. We don't have this true health experience. Rather, we stay in the space of what I call fake health. You're disease-free. Oh, you go to your doctor and you're fine. I can't put you on anything. I can't help you. But you're symptom-full. You have weight you can't lose. You fall asleep, you can't stay asleep. You've got crippling anxiety. Your hormones are all out of whack. You've got low testosterone. You're perimenopausal. Your hair is falling out. You don't know why. You eat and you bloat. You got headaches that won't go away. That's just what it takes to build a family. That's what it takes to lead a team of 50. That's what it looks like to build $100 million company. That's what it looks to be a dad, a mom. All lies that we get told to keep us in this state of acceptance of mediocrity and ultimately end up creating a stat where chronic illness is the leading cause of death in North America at 71%. And so why does this matter today? Because so many of us want to talk about how do we create customer retention or talent development or build on our financials or make sure that our operations are all intact, making sure that we've got this amazing process in place. But in actuality, when we have the unhealthy leader, everything else is in black and white. Because Ken, there's only certain things that you have the vision for, only certain things that you have the purpose for to step into that only you can do.
Right.
Same thing with you, Dave. There's only certain things that you've taken over this business that you know, that you have a passion for, that you have a mission for, that you have the creativity to bring into fruition. It's the same truth for everybody. But until we're willing to be healthy as a leader, none of this stuff on the outside can come into color. And that's why I'm here today, is to help us guide what does the process look like. So when the process is followed, the outcome happens as a consequence. It's the default. And so I asked, why do we fail? It's because it's designed that way. It's designed to have us fail. It's designed to have us fall behind. It's designed to have us confused. And so when we sit here, I wanted to ask a different question. Going back to that 8-year-old kid, that was told he was broken, that 8-year-old kid that went to the doctors and said, hey, why am I feeling this way? Hey, here's some medication for you. The 14-year-old kid that was sitting in the doctor's offices trying to figure out why he was fearful of eating food and being told, no, just sit through and eat through a feeding tube and you'll be fine. It was not how do you treat something, but why is it happening? And we can get clear on why is it happening. We can put the body in the environments and the ecosystems and the spaces where it can heal itself. And that started our mission, which was to help business owners and entrepreneurs beat the rigged system so they can win in their health without having to sacrifice business and family. And it's been amazing to be able to see how we serve tip of the spear people who, when they're doing the work, they're on mission, they can get dull. They can get dull because it's work. They can get dull because they're serving. And our mission is to keep you sharp. And so having served about 12,000 people over the last 4.5 years, it's been amazing to see the transformational stories. And so I want to step back into this for a second because we understand the language of our businesses. How many people in this room have a vision for your business? I would hope everybody. Yes. A vision for your business. How many of those visions are tied to KPIs? You have KPIs within your business? Yes. You have KPIs that are attached to certain business divisions. KPIs for marketing? Yes. KPIs for ops, human resources, sales? Yes. Those KPIs for all these business divisions, you as the leader help create a strategy that drives this. That usually comes back to the vision. The vision ultimately comes back to the KPIs that you can communicate to those divisions, whether they're working well or not, ultimately create a new strategy if they're not, ultimately comes back to the vision, so forth and so on, yes, to create the long-term success. But we've never done it for the thing that's running the engine. And so I want you to go back to your workbooks here because I've got a couple sheets in front of you. So first things first is we've got, I'll grab you one. So right here, we've got a workbook that I want you to work through, and then we'll touch on this later at the very end. And so if you open up your workbook, page 1, something that I think a lot of us often forget is it would be so easy for me right today just to dive right into tactics. I could talk about heart rate variability. I could talk about sleep quality. I could talk about looking at oxygen efficiency and VO2 max and all of these things that are important and critical for optimizing the way your body functions. But if I did that, we'd really miss out on the crux of what was here. And so just as we start with a vision for our businesses, I want us to start with a vision for our health. And when I say that, I've got a single question is, what do you desire from a health aspect? And I want you to take a second to write this down. And I don't want you to say longevity, more energy. I want it to be specific. Like I've had people say, I go on a ski trip every single year, and at 85, I still want to be on the slopes with my kids and my grandkids. You know what? I run a marathon every single year. I want to still be able to do that when I'm 90. You know what? I go to the lake with my kids or my grandkids every single year. I want to be able to drive the boat for my kids when I'm 95 years old. Like just things like this that they write down, that they have a vision for, that they can see, that they can cast, that is actually tangible. And so I want you to take a couple minutes here. I'll play some music in the background, but what I want you to do is I want you to get really clear on what is that desire that you have. What do you see yourself being able to stand into when it comes to your health? What is that vision for you? A little music in the background. Just take a second, think about it. Good tune, right? More details, the better. To be able to see it, allow yourself to see it.
I'm searching for answers. So I don't anymore. It's the
Just hit another one.
Just number one. Yep. Just number one. Brian, what was yours?
I said, the vitality to be able to travel and do it with gusto, being able to dance vigorously at my daughter's wedding.
Dance vigorously at your daughter's wedding. Love that.
I go hiking with my wife, the mental clarity to give wise advice as I age, maintain thriving friendships, and that ability to be able to get out there instead of wanting to stay home and rest all the time.
Yeah, deep level of connectivity. I love it. I often say that aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort. What I mean by that is like as we start to age, it's like, hey, I'm not gonna get into cold temperatures. I'm not gonna get into excessive heat. I'm just gonna stay in the nice comfort space of my heated home or my air conditioned home. I'm not gonna go and exercise hard. I'm not gonna go and do the difficult thing. I'm not gonna go and get up and go and see friends and connect with people. The aggressive pursuit of comfort. Aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort. Jerry?
Yes.
Awesome. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Awesome. Yep. Gary, what was yours?
Mine was walk the golf course with friends at 90.
There you go. Love that. If you want to be able to shoot your score in your age.
Well, that'd be good.
There you go.
Hold it right down there.
There you go. I've been
And score 90.
I've heard that one
There
many
we go.
times.
Shoot my age.
There you go. I love it. Alana.
Well, it's not that specific. I said be active and then in parentheses, move, play, dance, and confident with my friends, family, and future grandkids. Create a golf handicap, play pickleball, walk, bike, and enjoy activity and outdoors for as long as possible.
Great. I love it.
Pretty specific.
I love it. Brian.
Not just walk the golf course.
Ski, play tennis, play padel, water ski and rock climb forever.
There you go.
Forever.
Forever. I love that. That's what heaven looks like for you. Love that. Dave.
Mine, I want to be proud enough of my health that I inspired my kids
It's great.
to come along that way
It's great.
and a little more specific, still be water skiing, wakeboarding, riding dirt bikes for them for you.
It's great. I love it, Steve.
To snowboard with my grandkids. And I don't have any grandkids yet.
There you go.
I need a 15 to 20-year window.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you need a little bit of runway. That's great. I love it. Jerry.
So let me put this in context. Tomorrow I turn 85.
Good for you. Come on.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I got 65, 85, 60. We got some big milestones.
And one is my daughter.
Oh, it's so great. I love it.
So, to be able to walk long distances without soreness, and to walk up several flights of stairs carrying grocery bags, which is from Peter Attia, actually.
Yep.
And to lift up my young grandkids.
It's awesome. Have you seen that commercial with the grandfather who his wife passes away and he's at home, and every single morning he's going down and he grabs a kettlebell, he pulls it up, he does this, and he puts it back down, grabs it, does this. He's doing it in the depths of the cold mornings. It's wintry, it's blowy. He does it in the summer, and his neighbor's just watching him, like concerned. His wife's gone. He's like alone. He's doing this, grabbing it, doing this, grabbing it, doing this. And he started again in the winter. Well, it comes around the next scene, they show him and it's Christmas. And he's in his like Sunday best. And he's sitting there at the base of the Christmas tree, and in walks his, I'm guessing it's his son and daughter. And they've got this new little 3-year-old girl. And he comes in and he goes, and in she runs and she grabs him, and she grabs the star, and puts him up on the Christmas tree. And so it reminds me back, that makes me emotional. Because it's like there's purpose and intention to what it is that you're doing and to why, you know? And so that's the piece that we come back to, is that we have to realize that the visions that we have here, these are not hopes and dreams. These are things that are reality if process comes before outcome. So that's great. Great.
To be active, tennis, swimming, pickle, throughout my life with kids, my husband, and grandkids.
Awesome. Rob.
We just put able, energetic, athletic with my now a toddler son, like he's my age.
I love it.
My best friend's grandma still surfs in the ocean, not surfs, water skis, which is even more difficult, I think, at 90. And that's what I put down. I just want to stay there to surf and hang out with my grandkids when I'm in my teens.
I love it. Now, what I want us to think about, because I love the specificity of this vision, because when we have vision, we can have action. Without vision, we all perish. And so what does it look like to now go into the eyes of that person? I want you to take yourself to that moment where you're being able to say, hey, I'm walking that golf course at 90 years old. You see it. You see yourself kind of moving. You see yourself kind of going. You see yourself, surf in the ocean, surfing, sitting on that board, paddling out at 85, 90 years old. And I want you to kind of go third person, kind of just hovering above. And it's almost like you can go into the mind of this person. And I want you to ask, what is the belief that version of you has? What belief does that person operate from? It's not no longer because again, it's sometimes difficult as a 40, 50, 60-year-old person, 85-year-old person seeing into 95. It's sometimes difficult to actually go there, but what about when it's reality? I want you to take yourself to that point. Take yourself to that moment where you're realizing it, and ask that person, what belief does that version of you have? What do they think about? How do they think about it? What does this component actually look like? I want you to give yourself just again a couple minutes to write this down. What belief does this version of you have?
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So let me give you an example. I don't want to give the answers away in terms of what it is, but Did you start your company?
Yes.
So when you started your company, how did you think about it? Did you have a clear vision of what you wanted to build?
I thought I did, but,
But it changed?
yeah, it changed.
And so at any point, did you see yourself with what you have now?
Not as big as it is, no.
Awesome. The exact answer that I wanted.
What, say it again, Ken?
Not as big as it is today. I never dreamt it would be, if I could only dream as, here's a great way of saying it. If I could only dream as big as it got to back then, I would always wonder how big it would be had I dreamt bigger 30 years ago.
Wow.
I wish I could bring you alongside of me and have you literally say that at every single event, because
The dream, you can't dream big enough is now, here's when I was born, here's when I'm going to heaven, and this is where I'm at today. Looking back, I'm saying, had I known what I know today, how much bigger, better would my life be back then? And that's kind of what I want to do for people today. It's like impart that to them and like, man, especially the younger group.
it's so good, because that's where I'm coming at with this belief. Is so many of us today, we don't actually believe that what we just put down as a vision is actually possible.
You say no one or so many?
So many
Okay.
don't actually believe that it is possible. And the reason I'm going to say that,
Too big.
not only is it too big, because you're going to leave here and you're going to do the same darn thing you've done every other day and expect that what you put down as your vision is actually going to come to fruition. And go back. Yeah.
Some of the people in this room are already doing what it takes to, I know these people long enough, they're already doing it. Brian talks about meditation, sleep, yoga. He's already on that path. So you are correct. Some won't. A lot of these people will. I'm just kind of channeling that
There's
question.
there's going to be a paradigm shift, because maybe not. We think we're doing what's necessary,
Okay, fair enough.
but our body's actually going to communicate something very different. And it's actually going to be a wake-up call going, my gosh, what I thought was actually going to get me there. Just as Ken goes, I think I know what I need to do to build a big business, but my God, I had no clue. I actually had no clue. And so
Isn't this a room of already high achievers,
extremely,
you know? So a lot of them have that commitment and dedication to do what they should be doing.
yeah,
Something gets in the way, clearly.
yep.
Life.
Not understanding the process. That's what I'm hearing Justin say.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
And so when I come back to this, I love working with tip of the spear people, high achieving people, because there's a mindset that's different from everybody else.
Sure.
That's why I only step into these rooms. When I was working with the Navy SEALs, I'll never forget this, working with the Navy SEALs, and had spent about 3 days with them. And I sat down with the captain at the end of watching what looked to me like just a torturous morning. These guys interlocked in arms, laying down, the waves crushing over top for hours. And then crawling through the sand, and then going and holding planks for 11, 12, 13, 14 minutes, and then having to continue to hold the planks while someone came along with a fire hose and just was demoralizing them. And we sat in a room. It was a room probably the same size as this. His desk was at that end. It was sitting right next to him, and he was drawing some stuff on a whiteboard. And he looked at me and said, Justin, how'd you like this morning? I was like, I don't know if I could have done it or necessarily chose to do it. He goes, no, you could have done it. He goes, it's just a mental exercise. That's really all it is. You have the capability. And then I looked at it, I said, this is all awesome. I get it. You guys are like the best of the best. But when you go in to like a shipwreck and you've got a helicopter, you're looking down and you've got a shipwreck there. You've got 150 people struggling in the water. In go the men. Who do you save first? Do you know what he said?
The most vulnerable?
Me.
I thought he was going to say women and children, the most vulnerable. He said, no. We help the people swimming towards the helicopter. And I've never forgot that, because that is what we do at Own It. That is who we want to serve. I want to help the people swimming towards the helicopter, because if I can help serve the people that want it, I'm not spending my time and energy on those that don't. I'm not trying to convince you that certain things are important. I'm not trying to convince you that there needs to be changes. I'm not trying to convince you and spending my energy there. Rather, I'm spending the people who are like, I want more of this. I buy into this. I love this. Just help give me the process. Just help steer me in the right lane. Just help hold me accountable. I don't want to spend my time with the people who are going to resist me, who are the people who are going to tell me, no, this is a better way. Fine, go do it your way. I'll just be here when you fail. I'll be here 3 years from now when you're frustrated. And so that just comes back to me all the time. And I love what you said, Jerry, because that's why I love being in this room. All of you are tip of the spear people. You all know what you're supposed to do and want to do. But what if we realize that, my gosh, what I've been doing has actually been wrong the whole time? Or my gosh, what if I actually realized there was an easier, simpler way to do it? What if everything that I've been doing, everything I've been investing in actually isn't necessarily where I need to be? And so when we think about the belief that that version of you has, the belief that future version of you has, is exactly what Ken said. It's actually possible. That belief is like, no, this can be my reality. The belief is that, no, I have to change my process. I have to change my priorities today in order for this to ultimately be my reality tomorrow. This actually is this important. That's the belief that person has. So I didn't want to give the answer, but I just gave the answer. Because when we think about this, we'll bounce to the next one. Is how many people, and I'll kind of come back to this as well. How many people know what a thermostat does?
Regulates temperature.
Thank you. Who said that?
I did.
Awesome. Regulates temperature. I had somebody call out just as emphatic as you did one time. They said it tells the temperature. Like, no, that's a thermometer. But yeah, it regulates temperature. And the thing is that what would happen if all of a sudden we said it's at 73 degrees right now? What if we said it's 70 degrees? We opened up the windows in the heart of a Michigan summer, the humidity all rushed in, the air all rushed in. What would happen to the thermostat?
Go up.
It would go up. Are you sure?
I think it was
Oh,
humidity and part of
Send the
summer.
signal to turn on the AC.
No, it would stay the same, but the temperature would go up.
That's right. The temperature would go up. It would send a signal. The AC would turn on. It would try to bring it back down to 70 degrees. Well, we all have internal thermostats when it comes to our health. And so many of us are set at 70 degrees, Jerry. We're like, hey, we're high-performing people. We know what we do. We know our routines. We're focused on these things. Because it's a part of our identity. It's part of who we are, part of who we see ourselves as. We're focused on these things. But what if there was a 90-degree guy that was waiting to be unleashed? What if there was a 90-degree person that actually there was some small tweaks and small changes that were there? We've all tried this before. We've heard, hey, you know what? We've heard a talk like this. We want to go back. We want to implement it. I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. every day. I'm going to do my zone 2 work every day. I'm going to make sure that I'm actually getting into the gym 4 days a week. You know what? I'm actually going to cut out all these ingredients and go back to single food ingredients. You know what? I'm actually going to go and make sure I've got a night routine that's going to optimize for my REM and slow wave sleep. You know what? I'm actually going to start tracking this. But then that identity comes back and goes, Jerry, you're not a 6 a.m. guy. Gary, you don't pack your lunch every day. Steve, you don't ask for dressing on the side at the restaurant. And very slowly, over the course of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, we come back just like that 70-degree person. We've all lost the 50 pounds and maybe gained it back. We've all started to do the night routine and then slowly gone back to the way we were. We've all stopped watching TV at night, and all of a sudden now we're watching movies to fall asleep. We've done it. It's a cycle because our identity is tapped into who it is that we are, not who we can actually become. And so how do we change that? I think that's right. Starts with changing the belief process. Changing that the belief is actually possible. Number two is changing the intent behind what it is that we do, the intention behind what we do, tying our confidence not to the outcomes that we gain, but rather the processes that we abide by. Because we're going to fail, we're going to fall off the track. But if our confidence wanes on the outcomes, then we're all screwed. And the third one is association. Who do we associate with? Do the people around us look like people and abide like people who are going to live to 95 years old? Are they the people around us that when all of a sudden Steve at the restaurant says, hey, can you make sure that you grill my fish and put no seed oils on it and do dressing on the side, look at you like you have three eyes? Or do they go, no, you know what, Steve, I'm going to do the same thing that Steve did? Are they the people that show up and actually want to do the other things and that ultimately instill that belief back in you that make this whole circle tighter and pull you up to that 90-degree person? That's what this looks like. Because at the end of the day, there's a priority tree. There's a priority tree. And if I was to look at mine, when I was going along, I was operating in a way that wasn't going to be my reality. My business was number one. Myself, from a selfish standpoint, was number two. How can I improve? How can I make progress? How can I be the influencer? How can I be the guy that is on all the stages? From there, it was my marriage. Then it was my faith. Then it was my friends and family. And I remember sitting here going through this, feeling stressed all the time, feeling anxious all the time, being frustrated all the time, continually feeling pressure. And it wasn't until I had this moment where I had to go and actually change the priority set of how I operated, of how I thought about things, of how I leaned in. And my faith became number one. Ultimately, my health became number two. My marriage became number three. My friends and family became number four. My business became number five. And before you say, oh yeah, that's so like just dream world. Priorities does not equal time spent. That's a good one. We think priorities equal time spent all the time. I don't have time. Yes, you do. You just don't have your priorities right. I go back to the things that people said. This is not my words. This is what you said. What's something you'd want more of? What's something you want to change? I need more time. No, you don't. No, you don't. Myself, Oprah, Bill Gates, we all have the same 24 hours. Right. The only non-renewable resource in this world is time. And so priority does not equal time spent, but rather, how do you prioritize it? Because here's the thing. I never miss Sunday church. I never miss my Monday night men's night. I never miss my 2 annual retreats I hold for men. I never miss these. Why? Because they're on the calendar. I've gotten many speaking engagements offered to speak Sunday mornings. No, I just don't do those. I've got many travel opportunities that would require me to miss Monday night men's nights. I just don't do those. I've got many. Actually, this is a great example. I was asked to go for dinner with you last night, right? We were looking at that. I flew out at 7 o'clock. Why? Because men's night starts at 4. Sure, I could have come at noon, but that means I would have missed. So instead, I adjusted some things to make sure it would work. But if that men's night's not on the calendar, guess what? Oh yeah, sure, I can come in, no problem. Nothing takes the place of my morning workout. I was working out this morning, 6 o'clock wake up. Nothing takes the place of date night once a week. Nothing takes the place of 5 nights a week that we have dinner together. One of the nights that I am here, because I'm here tonight, or I'll be here tonight, tomorrow, and I leave Thursday. I will have one of those nights where we will FaceTime and have dinner together. Sunday afternoon. Nothing takes the place of our Sunday afternoon meeting. Nothing takes the place of Friday night call with my mom. Nothing takes the place of Friday or Monday evening call with my dad. Nothing takes the place of date night with one of my kids once a week. Business. There's more than enough time to work 8, 10, 12, 14-hour days, whatever's required, that's guilt-free, that's energetic, that's focused. But all of this has to fall first. And so it's not, you don't have enough time. It's just that your priorities haven't landed correctly. So I want us to go into our sheet right now. And I want us to write down, what are your current priority sets? You don't have to use my words. You can use whatever words you want, whatever words resonate with you. But I want you to throw on, what is your current priority set? What are you putting on the calendar first? What are you leaning into? And a great way to think about this, is what gives you anxiety if all of a sudden you can't do it? What gives you anxiety if all of a sudden you can't do it? Just be honest, be vulnerable, be a little open here. What's your current? And then before you go into the desire, just put your pen down.
Very, very active. My cousin, should dance with cold clothes, kept school all this. I forgot all my stuff. Church, sex, just thinking about. Where is that? It's not like it. So I don't know if it fits. So. Be upset why. Oh, look down. So the fake face. I don't know how I'm looking at my body. Routines and rituals, rules. It's something, yeah. So what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes. You can close your eyes for a second. Ken, I want you to take yourself into the water, your flow down, your surfboard, your 90. Gary, you're walking the golf course. Brian, you're up hiking the mountain with your wife. I want you to take yourself to what that vision was. Take yourself, actually see yourself there. See yourself there.
And again, just like third person, I want you almost to fly down right in front of that person. And I want you to look yourself dead in the eye. Dead in the eye. It's quiet, silent. And I want you to look yourself dead in the eye and I want you to say, what did you prioritize to make this a reality? What did you prioritize to make this a reality? Just sit, just pause, wait on it. What did you prioritize to make this a reality? What did you say yes to? What did you have to overcome? What did you have to change? What did you have to accept? As you sit in that, as you start to get an answer, as you start to get a flow, start to write down what is it that you desire. Brian and Gary, I want you guys to pair up. Lana and Brian, I want you to pair up. Dave and Steve, Jerry and Jillian, and then Rob. Yeah. What I want you to do is I want you to answer these two questions or go through these. Number one is just kind of communicate back and forth. What did you feel when you looked at the difference between your current and your desire? What emotions elicited, or what did you notice? And then when you look at these, so what did you notice? What emotions do you feel? And then when you look at these, what is the biggest thing that jumps out at you that needs to change? Number one, what did you feel? What emotions did it elicit looking at the differences? And then number two, what jumps out at you by looking at those that needs to change? I'll give you 5 minutes. It's about 2.5 minutes per person. I'll tell you guys when we're going to switch, and then that'll lead us into our first break.
All right.
First is, what did I call this? Because in retirement, this whole health journey thing. Yeah, I told this to you before. That's what I was looking at home. You know, so I made this, and then now I'm reflecting my, what did I notice is that I have put learning new things. It tends to be what I do every day. I make them get up in the morning, I'm reading, I'm learning, and I'm realizing that. So there's right to say you're living every two putting it together as opposed to being healthy. So we have regular date nights and planning sessions. With friends and family are also important, and then we forget to do, which never get done because I'm too busy doing the first one. Okay. That was what I noticed. What do we need to do? I think a breakdown the major difference is to change habits when it comes to health.
Yeah, and I know we're getting rid of.
My wife and I both enjoy a glass of wine, and we know that that's poison. We have to stop. Absolutely have to stop. Fitness, we have just joined a gym, and it's really encouraging, especially for Kim, because these folks really know what they're doing, which is different than what I think the marriage, to be 90 years old, we have to spend more time on friends and family. The marriage is so good
Yeah, I think
that we don't tend to reach out.
Do you think it will change? You make less money?
I
I can be talked into.
I'm not,
Because,
I'm asking.
well, the reason I think I literally answered the question at 90 years old, walking the golf course, it may not be everything to friends and family. So I mean, I have to, it's a longer story than 2 minutes, but I have to write this with a good friend of mine who has me. People have passed away in his life, and I asked him, how do you deal with it?
Halfway, guys, another 2.5 minutes, 2.5
He
minutes.
looked right at me and said, "You may choke up." Having friends that are younger than us, so it keeps us young. I'm like, wow.
I mean,
And the same thing about, they have a great marriage, but they both practice that friends and family come before us. Like this. Because we may not be together, because we may get the calls, but friends and family will keep us alive. And I'm like, so that's why I label it that way. But you make a good point. It's not about how much time, it's a priority. So you can very well. I have no way. Just switch it up. Okay, you.
I was, so, and you saw me looking at my phone, I was doing the same thing you were doing, because my personal mission statement puts it in this. Health, marriage, children, friends, and family. And the one struggle I had was, where does cultivating wisdom go? Because reverse of learning. Because I mean, to me, cultivating wisdom is the thing that keeps these priorities. So I don't know if it's an archery thing, or if there's another priority.
So whether that's a process, right, or that's a, what do you call that, an outcome? Yeah, right, because you have to do this.
just comes down to me.
But I felt pretty good, even after meeting him.
It forced me to realize that, while that is my list, this, I way too much, I make this a priority. To the detriment of the other things. And all I'm doing is building the business to, like I told. Some friends of ours.
30 seconds, guys, 30 seconds.
I said, I don't know how I work. I'm so busy. I realize I'm busy doing easy stuff, which is learning is easy. It's the harder stuff that gets, doesn't get the time. Anyway, this is. Kim has had a trainer for at least 10 years, personal trainer, to the point where she knows everything.
All right.
Yeah, her family.
Bring it back in here.
I don't think she focuses on
Bring it back in.
but it's just twice a week to go see Chris.
Social.
And so I got her to.
What were some of the emotions that you elicited? What were some of the things that you felt? Some things you noticed?
I felt a lot more at peace, I felt. And I wrote something else down, and, control.
It's great. What else?
In its process.
Just in what you noticed when you looked at current versus desired.
I would say clarity.
Clarity, great.
I noticed, I would call it interrelatedness. I mean, a lesser priority feeds a higher priority. In other words, they're connected. We're not just on an island with priority 1 or priority 2, and they're like, my priority 4 is feeding 1 and 2.
Amen. For sure. Clarity creates commitment that elicits a greater sense of control and peace. When you realize that everything else is integrated. Great. What else? One more. Joy. Joy. Awesome. That's not a J. That could be.
No.
We'll make it a J. That's awesome. These are the emotions that like I want us to feel going in. Again, come back to this. I think it's safe in this room, but like peace, joy, self-control, kindness, goodness, gentleness, fruits of the spirit. You want to know when something's off? Anxiety, it's not a fruit of the spirit. Fear, not a fruit of the spirit. Bitterness, resentment, anger, frustration. Probably means the way we're living isn't quite ordained in how it is that we were created to live. So what is the habits, behaviors, and lifestyle changes that need to happen in order to bring us back into these spaces? And so this afternoon, we're gonna, after our break, it's currently 10:13. At 10:20, I hate letting entrepreneurs and business owners go because it's like hurting mice. 10:20, can I get a commitment that we're all back so we can start? Because what we're going to dive into is really that your body does have a language and your body is constantly speaking to you. And this is where we're going to get tactical. We're really going to dive into what is it actually saying? What does it actually look like? And take the vision that we've got, attach KPIs, process, and strategy. Cool? Cool. Right on.
Anybody still owe me a menu?
No, I do. Good, not wait. Everybody else? Okay. This one, that's really good. I don't normally know this. I mean, this is really, this is overall. Oh, try it. Listen, well, this is just for this 4 ingredients. What's it like? Water. This says fresh chicken bugs. Yeah, and this is just raw carrots, oatmeal, and don't sugar it. You're gonna break that down.
Did you really?
I love that. Amazing dude too. Great guy. Super great.
Even a better person.
Yeah, 100%. Those sweets are down to the. And go. Doing good.
Thanks so much.
I'll take lunch with the guys today.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Got one of you?
I did. My name's Chris.
Okay.
Well, my name's not actually Chris. On here it's Chris. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right.
So, yeah. Really a real good COO. So, Kristen, that was, two little. Just didn't say when you're talking about anything, we're back just trying to help the whole lot. Yeah, I feel like I've been on a 20-year journey. So this daytime sleeping is shit. When I was like 2021, I went in and they're like, oh, yeah, just sleep study. And I went in and sleep study and yeah. I'm like, yeah, my other daughter's sleep apnea, like 15 times an hour, but the next morning, I go on every nap, I would just sleep at night, you know, and that led to. Yeah. Oh, well, we'll give you some more Ritalin at 11, just keep you going. Then one more at 2 and.
Yep.
You're all like shit. You're finally. I hated it because I hate the stimulants, you know. I mean, I'm alarm would go off at 4 in the morning and I some Ritalin, but hopefully at 5:30 I would actually make up. And I don't get up from there. A couple days later.
I had to leave early.
Second part of both cars. And I was pretty good to, 15 years ago was this is on. Same things.
Yeah, you know what? That was the, I think.
Something nutrition. I guess, birthday. So, you know, and I think that's, I just should do right now.
And that's not
Because I
my
don't-
joy. I mean,
know, it's a line. Why, it's too working. Still well. No, I really am. I didn't do that. No, it's a better thought. It's a way to go. So I have some of my brain. Well, yeah, so it's like. I need so. I'm excited. Great. Usually. Well, it comes down to really hard to figure it out. That's all. So I say it's what was it? 4 or 5 years ago, we had Dan Miller a couple times. He's a nutritionist, health coach too, and he got figured in here a couple times. And business, you know, speaking.
I mean, at the end of the day, when you realize that you can look after this thing and it just increases your capacity. You already have everything you need to be able to do what you need to do. Yeah. Big boss. Fast, down, operate. So that's great. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it's, follow a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just, last Thursday, I was at HR Summit and after talk for exactly about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but you're so bad. Time to go. Good.
If the white, he's gonna go this here. The white is a carrot oatmeal thing. Really delicious. It's all one. Thank you. I'm gonna have Kate join us. You know what? He's gonna have a meeting. Let me bring down the chair.
All right, well, you're a minute here.
Okay, yeah, I'll head out once.
Keeps like spending at game time.
Of course.
Guys.
Right on time. Yeah. Well, Gary's got the program.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it's 20 after. Let's make sure we optimize the amount of time we're gonna get the wisdom of Justin here.
All right, we're all back in here.
We are ready.
Great, you can. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Stuff that's gonna make you live longer.
Man, let's go.
All right. So we started with vision. Started with really knowing where we were going, what our goals were, where we were trying to attain, what we could see that as. And now it sets us up really nicely for really knowing that your body has a language. Your body's constantly communicating to us. The way we were designed has a language. And so there's 4 key metrics that we need to know in order to optimize ourselves metabolically in order to win. And so when we think about this, I go back to, remember what I talked about? 30 trillion cells synergistically working together inside of our body in order to sustain and maintain and operate life. Well, those cells need 4 things. 4 things. Number 1 needs oxygen. Number 2 needs the ability to repair or remove toxins. Number 3 needs nutrients. Number 4, if it does not have these 3 things, needs the ability to push off oxidative stress. And for this conversation, the ability to push off oxidative stress. For this conversation, let's just call it stress. And so if we sit here and we think about this, there's really, okay, cool. 4 things, got it. But how do I know where I'm at with these? how do I know how my cells are actually functioning? That's a great question. Because the first metric we have to understand, it's called heart rate variability. And when we look at this graph right here, this little diagram, do you think in order for us to start, if oxygen, the ability to repair nutrients is critical, and if we don't have one of these three, that stress is present, do you think overarchingly, one of the single most important metrics to be able to understand is how do we understand what stress we're under, or if we're under stress at all? And so the language of understanding stress is heart rate variability. It is the single most important metric. It's what I did all my postgraduate doctoral work in. It's what I continue to dive into since I was about 13 years old. I still remember asking my parents for a heart rate monitor when I was 13, and the first question they asked was like, "What, are you sick? Like, what's going on? Like, what's happening?" And I just had an affinity for this metric. I was reading medical journals when most people were reading comic books at my age at 11, 12. And I came across this metric of heart rate variability. And so HRV, write this down. HRV is the language. I'm going to communicate every single metric in the form of language. Heart rate variability is the language in which your body is communicating to you its ability to adapt to stress. Heart rate variability is the language in which your body is communicating to you its ability to adapt to stress. So I'm going to take Rob for an example. We're both Canadians, so we've got the same genes, same bloodline.
You both hate Americans? Like
No, we love America. Okay, we're just not your 51st state. Right. But we come back to this and we take a peek. If Rob and I both have a resting heart rate of 60 beats per minute, would it make sense that your heart is beating at 1 beat per second? 60 beats per minute divided by 60 seconds equals 1 beat per second. Well, it's awesome that it makes sense because it's not true. Awesome that it makes sense because it's not true. Like a lot of those things. The fact is our heart only beats when it has to. And so when we think about this, what ends up happening, the actual concept of how the heart beats is there's different time intervals between successive beats. And so let's take Rob for an example. Rob is in great shape. Rob eats really well. Rob is hydrated. Rob sleeps deeply. Rob is on purpose. Rob has a great rhythm between stressing at work, stressing at home, stressing through workouts, stressing through different temperature exposures, but also then recovering. He has a great rhythm. He gets in, he gets out. He gets in, he gets out. His habits, his behaviors, it's this beautiful dance that Rob has figured out.
Nice work, Rob.
We'll see until we pull your data. And so his body goes, hey, I can get along with this. I can get on board with this. So it's 795 milliseconds in between successive beats. And then it goes, his next one is 695 milliseconds. And then it's 825 milliseconds. And then it's 975 milliseconds. We look at the time difference. This is 100 millisecond difference. We look at the time difference here. It is, come on, Justin, use better math. 130 milliseconds. We get a bet here, 150 milliseconds. So Rob's HRV, take an average of these, over the course of 60 seconds, his heart is beating 60 times with different time intervals in between. Rob's HRV is, let's call it 125. Justin, on the other hand, Justin's not in very good shape. Justin's fitness level isn't very good. Justin didn't sleep very well last night. He got in late on a plane. It was delayed. Justin's never given this talk before. Justin's nervous. Justin's dehydrated. Justin started the day with a cup of coffee and a bagel. Justin's in a fight with his spouse. Justin's worried about where his business is going. Justin's worried about all of these expenses coming up because the kids are going off to college. And all of a sudden, Justin's body goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. We just got to keep this guy alive. And so the time intervals are 795 milliseconds, 790 milliseconds, 800 milliseconds, 785 milliseconds. We got 5, we got 10, we got 15. Justin's HRV, 10. Same resting heart rate. Same 60 seconds, beat 60 times. Different successive time beats. 125 versus 10. The higher your HRV trend, the more variation between successive beats, the greater adaptation your body is having to stress. The better rhythm you're in, your habits, your behaviors, the validation that what you're doing is correct. The lesser your HRV trend, the lower your HRV number, it's a signal and a sign that there's a lesser adaptation to stress. Yeah.
So you're saying variability in terms of stress is a good thing. Your body is responding correctly. Is that what you're saying?
So try to give this example.
Yeah.
When we think about a palm tree, high degrees of flexibility, high degrees of variability in storms, especially, right?
Right.
So same thing with us. So we need high degrees of variability. When we think of an oak tree, hard enough wind comes, cracks and breaks. So we want high degrees of variability between signaling that our body is more, I'm trying to avoid some of these bigger words, but more parasympathetic, more relaxed, rest, digest. It's got a great rhythm. It doesn't mean that we're not stressing. Doesn't mean that life is easier for these people. It means they have a bigger capacity. Higher HRV means a larger capacity to take on more, handle more.
This is something new with Samsung Health updated and with the watch and all that, it tracks that at sleep. So is it different at sleep? Because it's telling me I'm excellent. I'm only at 53 and it's really.
Oh, you just, I love tech. You're going to just hold on to your seat. Strap in. Strap in.
It's what I'm saying.
Strap in. You have to get so again, this is where whether you wear an Oura ring, a Whoop band, a Garmin, a Samsung, I love all these pieces of technology. They've been really, really great. Here's where everybody's screwed up. Is that they've all created these algorithms because it's their own unique property set. I don't know what the hell a recovery score is. I don't know what a sleep score is. I don't know what a regeneration score is or a readiness score. I don't know what these mean. I know what HRV means. I know what sleep quality means.
Is there an agreed upon definition of HRV?
Yes, it is the language of which your body is utilizing or.
I mean, it's like the medical industry says, yes, this is the equation.
Yes.
Got
it. So, if you really want the equation, it's the square root of the successive differences.
So Justin, in theory, if your heart is able to pump a certain volume to feed the needs of the body, then it doesn't have to beat as often. That's what causes the variability.
No, so it's a great question. And a lot of people get into this is you're thinking still of heart rate rather than heart rate variability. So heart rate, you're thinking this is what you're talking about actually has more to do with another metric we're going to talk about, which is VO2 max.
Okay.
It's the ability to pump blood. Okay. And why does that matter? Getting ahead of myself. Okay. Oxygen. And so what we're talking about here is simply the variation in successive time between beats. Okay. A higher variability means that the habits, the behaviors, the way that you're living, the things that you're doing holistically, overall, as a whole, really great. Your body's in a great rhythm. It feels really good. It means it's getting all three of these things in really great levels. When it's low, it means 1, 2, 3, or combination, or all of them are missing. And it's a warning sign. It's a wake-up call. It's like, hey, fix this or else. What we vision is not coming true, no matter how hard you vision, no matter how hard you visualize, no matter how many times you write it down in a journal. Not going to come. Have a manifestation wall. And so it's a really direct sign. So we think about what should your HRV be? It's a great question. Age down here along the bottom, HRV along the top. This is 5 million people's data aggregated together. And what we've found is that we want to be in the 50 percentile or greater. So basically, if we're here or above, it means that that is the level that has been accepted as you are on a great path, a great trajectory. Has anybody ever heard the top difference between biological versus chronological age? Chronological age. How many birthdays have you had? So you're turning 65, 60, 65. You're turning 60, you're turning 65. Thus your chronological age currently is 64 in some days and 64 in some days, 59 in some days. Biological age.
I'm 22.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Is how old are you cellularly? How fast are you aging internally? And what we end up finding is that heart rate variability is one of the best metrics to understand, are you aging faster or slower? So if all of a sudden we were to take, let's just go with Ken for an example. If Ken's turning 60, we know that at 60 years old, he should have an HRV of 40 or greater. And let's say, for an example, Ken came in, everyone turn your ringers off. If we came in and all of a sudden, Ken had an HRV of 25. Well, what we would actually see is that he actually has a biological age closer to that of like 65 or 70. Same thing with someone who's 40. If you're 40 and you have an HRV, it should be somewhere between 55 and 85. Well, say you have an HRV of 40, I would say cellularly you're more around like that 50 to 55 range. Why does that matter? Because now you become exposed to the cellular degradation, the cellular decay, and the chronic illnesses that would be exposed to those people at that age.
Why does it go down with age?
It's great. It's a great question. So it's just a natural, it's just a natural decay in just how we're in our overall age and kind of what's happening. And so here's the cool part, right? People always ask, why does it go down and then why does it increase?
But why is there?
Empty nest and retired. That's why it increases.
So say that again.
Why is that a spike right where your fingers at?
Yeah, so there's two things. It spikes at 45s and 50s, I think for two reasons. Many people at 45 and many people at 50 have wake-up calls where all of a sudden, I need to start focusing on my health a little bit more. And so these specific age brackets start to see a more focus on these health habits and these health lifestyle components. Why does it go up here? Kids usually are out of school. They're usually out of the house. So there's one of the stressors that you're kind of just continually going and pushing into. There's usually a retirement age that happens here. So now you get more time back. What do you start focusing on once you get time back? Probably your health, because you probably lost it over the course of the last 25, 30 years. And now you have to start to do something retrospectively. And so these are the things that kind of show up here that now give us, hey, we don't have to be like everybody else. We don't have to be normal. We can actually see an HRV that sits up here and actually allows us, instead of retiring at 55, 60, we can actually work till we die because we have a mission that's greater.
Their relationship with mountaineers are the most efficient in their 40s to 50s.
Yep.
What's the quantitative analysis on that? Is there a relationship?
I've never looked into mountaineers specifically, but just even knowing what mountaineering is all about, walking, being in mountains, elevation, and you come back to just that concept, you can break this down, right? I guarantee you their oxygen efficiency is, their VO2 max is probably pretty high. They spend a lot of time in zone 2. Being able to understand that they are usually health conscious, health focused, so they're fueling themselves while they're out there, probably is pretty decent. And just by a matter of fact, I would say that their HRV is probably slightly elevated depending what their habits were from a sleeping standpoint, a drinking standpoint.
It's just comparing it to like a 20-year-old mountaineer. Like, it's just so bizarre that I always found that fascinating that a 40-year-old mountaineer is better than a 20-year-old.
In what way? What's better?
oxygen, efficiency, like,
I mean, I'd have to see the
Yeah, you'd
data.
have to look at it, yeah.
I'd have to see the data.
Yeah.
There's, again, you can spin stories to make data say whatever you want.
Yeah.
But again, I'd have to look at the populations
Yeah.
that were studied, like
Yeah.
at 20 years old, what were all of us doing at 20 years old? Like, let's be honest, like probably staying up late, probably partying, probably doing some other things that weren't as conducive to what a 40-year-old mountaineer has to do in order to maintain the likelihood of this, right? So, yeah.
Hey, my name's Cade. You guys, just Cade.
Cade.
Yeah. Quick question: when you fall, because I have one of the Garmin things and whatnot, and I track my health like spot on.
Yeah.
Or tried to as much as I can. I'm not sure if it's perfect, but it's measuring.
Yeah.
There's a trend, and just recently, my HRV was on average about like 85.
Yeah.
And like 2 weeks ago, I was tracking my 4-week average, and it was going down, 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 down. I fell out of my average zone.
Yeah.
And I went into the unbalanced, and I literally fell ill and got sick when I entered the unbalanced zone for 3 days in a row. And now it's been slowly going back up since I've been recovering again. And I was also feeling like super stressed out during that time with things in my life. So, but I didn't realize that. I thought I was going crazy. So I was going back through all like the statistics.
That is wrong. Can't be right.
I was like, what's going on? And I found that average. I was like, unbalanced into the 60s, into the 50s. And then I fell sick. And now I'm recovering and it's going back up to 80s again. Does that sound like what, is that my theology or my theory? Is that kind of accurate?
Yes.
Like why that could have happened?
Yes. So, again, I'd love for you to come along the road. But you it was literally where I was going next is how many people here have Apple Watches? So if you have an Apple Watch, I want you to go into your phone and open Apple Health. I'm going to get back to your question in a second.
Can you do this without an Apple phone? What you're about to walk us through?
No, you have to have some, if you have a wearable, if you have an Oura Ring, you have a Garmin, you have something else, you can, Samsung will work. But most people, when I go into rooms, Apple Watches are kind of the most common. So if you go to Apple Health, go to the bottom right corner, click on Browse, then click on Heart, then click on Heart Rate Variability. Click on Heart Rate Variability.
I found it.
Yep.
Despite the differences, do you have a recommended?
Yeah.
Thing?
Whoop and Oura by far the best.
Like the Ring?
The Ring, Oura, or Whoop, WHOOP. I'll give you guys codes to get heavily discounted Oura or a free Whoop band.
An Oura, O-U-R-A.
O-U-R-A. Yep. O-U-R-A. If you go auraring.com/ownit, OWNIT, they give you a nice little discount. And if you go join.whoop, WHOOP.com/ownit, they'll give you actually a free Whoop band, which would be great. So, coming back to Cade. Yeah, coming back to Cade's question. So Cade actually said something pretty unique and interesting, and it's what the downside that I see to a lot of these wearable devices and people when they think, oh, I'll get a wearable device and it'll fix everything, is Cade recognized that there was a downturn. Cade recognized that there was drop off. Cade recognized that things were actually going in the opposite direction. The first thing he's thinking about is, well, my watch is broken. Well, this is bad. Well, what is happening? I don't know how to get it up. I don't know why it's happening. And then all of a sudden he gets sick. Yeah. And then his body, because it's resilient, his body, because that's what it's supposed to do, goes through a 2, 3, 4 week phase where he's now done. He's exhausted. He's tired. He's sick. He's now battling through it. Now he's coming back up on the other swing. And about 4 weeks later, his HRV returns to normal because his body has gone through a 4-week process to get rid of everything. What would happen if all of a sudden we saw, hey, 2-day decrease in HRV? Oh, you know what? I now know I'm deficient in certain types of nutrients. Now I'm actually going to increase these specific nutrients that I'm deficient in. I'm going to have an immune protocol. I'm going to have a routine that's going to change up. I'm going to change the night routine. I'm going to get into the sauna. I'm going to make sure I'm using these types of breathing techniques. And I'm actually going to take myself from getting sick to actually having notified that something was wrong and now proactively doing something about it and now no longer ever getting sick. Yeah. That's the difference between taking ownership of your health and just simply living. And 90% of us are just simply living thinking our data is fine. And that
Too busy doing everything else.
Or we just don't understand it. Like Cade's looking at it, but he doesn't understand it. Just like a lot of us. We know what my blood pressure is, but I really don't understand it. I know what my fitness level is because I feel good when I work out, but I actually don't understand it. I think I sleep well because I fall asleep at 10 o'clock and wake up at 6, but I actually don't understand it. And so when we understand something, we've now gained wisdom to be able to implement something at a different level so that we can realize a different outcome. The outcome that we've told ourselves at the very beginning that isn't for us because we simply don't understand how to get here. And so this is where HRV comes in. And we can start to actually see it. So I heard a comment. Alana, what's your HRV score?
Today it's 51.
Okay. So day 51, what's the week?
49.
39? What's the month?
43.
43. The 6 month?
40.
40. The year?
40.
40. Okay. So when I look at this, and Alana, can I ask how old you are if you don't mind me asking?
47.
47. So it's 47 years old. Alana should theoretically be having an average of about 45 to about 80. So her week, her month, her 6 month, and her year are low. We should see her around 45. Her day, or her week, her month, her 6 month, and her year being kind of stagnated, there's not real much variation, would tell me that there's a habit set, some things that are going on within her that probably holding back a little bit. Could I see your data if you wouldn't mind me asking? And the other question I'll ask, are you a calendar-based person? Like if I was to ask you to go to a date, you'd be able to go, I know what I kind of did that day.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay, cool. So somebody asked last time I did this, is this a magic trick? It's like, I'm done. Okay, so really good. Can you take me, can you walk me through February 24th? Go to February 24th for me. You go February 24th. What was February 24th? What day was it? What day was it?
A Monday.
It was a Monday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. February 24th, it was a Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Walk me through the day. What did you do? What kind of happened? What happened over the weekend? Kind of just give me, try to get as specific as you can.
I probably walked in the morning because I've been walking Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So
Okay.
I probably walked for half hour on the treadmill in the morning.
Yep.
I had a usual day of work with some training, lunch, more training. It was the day before I was leaving to go out of town,
Okay, where were you going out of town?
Arizona,
For what?
work meeting.
Okay, were you looking forward to going to Arizona?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you like do anything specific at home that day? Was there anything that kind of came off your plate that day?
I don't think so, but I always feel like getting ready, like feeling good about getting everything done I need to get done before I get out of town is always a goal.
Okay, so there's like accomplishment.
Probably.
Did you do anything with family, friends that day?
Not that's on my calendar, so I don't. I mean, I had lunch with somebody I haven't seen in a while. that
Okay,
day.
cool. Where'd you go for lunch?
Mex.
Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
but
just
maybe
a
it's somebody
restaurant.
else. Cool.
I had
Awesome.
chicken cup.
So here's the funny thing, right? February 24th, it's Monday. Can you walk me through your Sunday a little bit? Was there anything specifically that happened on Sunday that you know of?
Not that I can remember.
Cool. So if we were to dive in a little bit deeper, maybe we'd undig some interesting things. But this day specifically, she had a 69 HRV, her highest on the year, which if we come back to it, knowing that she's 47 years old, we want to see a 45 or greater average. 69, my gosh, like that's almost double what she's seeing now. So it's not that she can't obtain it, it's that she's just not living a life by design, but rather by default of what is actually here. And thus the default aspect is keeping her in these lower stages rather than showing what's here. I don't think it's by accident that you're here with people coming into a space like this, that you probably enjoy Visage days,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a 51. And on these days, you walked in the morning, you're going on a trip, you felt accomplished, you had lunch with a friend, and ultimately you saw your highest day at 69.
Your second highest day that spends with family and friends right here with us.
Yep, proving you love us. And so you start to look at these things is that our body tells the score. Our body continues to be able to understand this. I don't know, Alana, from,
I also got pneumonia later that week, so I've been sick for the last 3 weeks.
okay, so great. So this was great. This is great.
Explains the 39.
This is great because it explains the 39.
Yeah.
So you start to have people communicate this stuff and the data doesn't lie. It's just like in your business. It's like, oh yeah, my business is fine. No, it's not, bro. It's in the red. Just look at the numbers. Like you can continue to say, yeah, I'm getting paid from somebody and money's going out on the other end. But until you look at the data, you'll actually know the health of your company. You'll actually know how you're operating. And it's so easy to keep our head in the sand and not want to look at it. It's very easy to all of a sudden say, oh, you know what? The reports I keep getting show that we're in the red every month. Just don't show me those numbers anymore. We'll just continue to keep going. Well, at some point, someone's going to knock on your door. And it's the same thing here. Because for the month, we were actually trending upwards over the course of 6 months. Not surprising that you said you started to walk every morning.
Yeah, within the last 45 days or so.
Wild, right?
Right, yeah,
But also not crazy that you said you got pneumonia and that probably stopped that.
it did. And I didn't wear my watch for a couple of days, so I had no data for a couple of days.
But 39. And so it starts to make sense. It's like, my gosh, this is actually really quite important. This actually can start to give me some guidance. Because we take a look at Justin when he lived a life in default, everything looked good on the outside, but ultimately he had a 79 at 29 years old, which actually should have been closer to 90. And so we see this, and it's like, my gosh, if HRV is actually this metric, if stress inside the body, if stress inside the body drops, does HRV increase or decrease?
Increase.
Increase. Very good. So now the question is, answer is always a question. How do I increase HRV?
Before you get into that, I have a question about what you just did, Alana.
Yeah.
So I'm drawing a conclusion, I don't know if it's correct. If you have this, you monitor whether it's daily or weekly,
Sure.
and you see things go down, it's bad. I go, it's good. Should you instantly correlate, holy cow, it went down yesterday. What did I do that drove this? Where you begin to make mental things, don't do this, take this out of my head, do this. Is that like, that's what I think I should do. Is that correct?
Yes.
She walked, it got better.
So when you
She
start
fought with her spouse, it got worse. What?
so I'll say yes and no. Yes, because that's how it works. But we're not a science experiment in a laboratory. There's a lot of dynamic things around us that are happening. There's a lot, like I did this with one person and she showed me her data and one day it jumped to 79 from an average of like 50. And I said, so tell me what happened. She was like, oh my God. And she was like having a hard time, right? Going, well, I walked, I did this, but I sometimes do this, I ate. And then I was kind of going along and I was like, a lot of times, remember, we're dynamic people, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. Body doesn't know the difference between these stressors. Real, perceived. Body doesn't know the difference between these stressors. Future, past, present, doesn't know the difference between these stressors. She's like, oh my God, that was the day that my husband accepted the job that we had been trying to figure out if he was going to accept for about a month. And so you can see how all of a sudden a weight literally gets lifted off of you and how mental, physical, spiritual, emotional impacts our health. And not 2 weeks before, she didn't have pneumonia, but she got a terrible, terrible flu. And she's like, I've never gotten the flu. The wear and tear of these stressors and the language on our body is an awakening moment. So I say this to say this is a lot of what we do for people, is creating hyper-personalized, proactive blueprints to help hold them accountable to these things and guide them. That's why in 87% of people that we work with, we see sickness rates drop. It's why all of a sudden in the NHL, we saw return to play protocols drop through the floor. No longer did it take them 4 months to recover, it took them 2 months. Now with people, we've got sickness rates dropping. We've got energy rates maintaining, all of these things because we've been able to do this. You can do it on your own, but it takes so much time to be able to understand the different dynamics. But yes, theoretically.
That's a quick question.
Yeah.
So you said earlier, well, maybe I wrote this down wrong. Higher HRV means higher capacity to handle stress.
Yep.
Not that you're not stressed, but you have a higher capacity to handle that stress. Now you go down, stress goes down, HRV goes up. Is the stress still there? It's just you're handling it better, so you feel better?
So think about this. So I call this like the 4 quadrants of ownership. I talk about it a lot in my book. Is we want to play here. This is in this level of ownership. It's recovered, it's energized, it's focused, it's mentally clear, all these things that we desire. But the reality is that we're constantly overreaching. You're raising a family, you're building a business, there's dynamics within relationships, all these things. We're constantly overreaching. Life keeps us here. The downside is that if we only stay here, our cup has a certain capacity. And if I've got 2 faucets on and I've got 20 holes in this, the water is going to come out the sides. It's never going to start overflowing because I've got the appropriate holes. But once I start covering those holes up and I turn a faucet on and another faucet, it starts to overflow. And so the longer we stay here without putting purposeful, intentional practices in place to recover, we cannot realize this rhythm that allows us to play here. And the longer that we just keep stacking and stacking and stacking, the longer the water overflows and sends us into this burnout space where we experience fatigue, where we experience illness, where we experience exhaustion, hopelessness. You put whatever word you want there. Does that make sense? Does that kind of give you a better understanding? You're not trying to eliminate stress from your life. Quite honestly, when you eliminate stress from your life, capacity shrinks. And that's when you look at how many people retire, go down to Florida and die. Mm-hmm. And so what happens, and I can say that I live in Miami now, but you say all of this, is that we still need to be able to stress. We still need to be able to expose ourselves to stress. It's that you don't have the rhythm of stress to regeneration in place, and thus HRV is suppressed and low. When HRV is high, it means, my gosh, you've got a great rhythm. You're getting into the fire, you're getting out of the fire. You're getting into the fire, you're getting out of the fire. You're getting into it, you're getting out of it. And you're setting your life up by design in a specific way so that you have a larger capacity. No longer are you dealing with a 32-ounce Stanley, you're dealing with a 64. So we can actually turn more faucets on. You can actually have a bigger impact, a bigger influence. You've actually got 9 holes in this thing now. And so not only has water come in, but now we can actually have a bigger jug. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. And so when we think about this, and we come into number 2, and it's like, well, the number one thing that we can do is VO2 max. How many people have heard of VO2 max? So VO2 max, again, is a language. Let's write this down. VO2 max is a language. It's a language that is communicating how well our body utilizes oxygen. How efficient are we at utilizing oxygen? And so for females, you should have a 38 or greater. For males, you should have a 45 or greater. Bare bones, bare minimum. If it's below 38, directly it says, hey, your body is not efficient enough at utilizing oxygen. If you're a female. If it's below 45, same thing for males. Lesser is unlearned. So let's give an example. If Rob's VO2 max is 60 and mine is 45, who has a greater efficiency to use oxygen, Rob or me? Rob. So again, because I want us to understand this concept. This concept is critical for us to understand and know. If Rob is at 60 and I'm at 45, is it more stressful on Rob's body or my body to sit in a room just like this? Normal. Would everybody agree with that? I don't see many nodding heads, so I don't know that we understand. So again, I want everyone to understand this. Don't feel like bad to ask a question, because if we don't understand any of this, it's not going to matter.
If Rob has a 68 VO2 max and I have a 45, whose body is more efficient at using oxygen? Rob's. Because a higher number indicates a greater oxygen efficiency, a greater ability to use oxygen. If Rob has a 60 and I have a 45, thus he has a greater efficiency to use oxygen, is it more or less stressful just sitting here on my body or his?
Less stress.
Less stressful on Rob's, more stressful on mine. Now let's take the same example. Is it more or less stressful, or bad question, is it more stressful on me or Rob to exercise?
You.
Me. Is it more stressful on me or Rob to sleep?
You.
Me. Is it more or less stressful on me or Rob to carry groceries?
You.
When your oxygen efficiency level is low,
Everything's more stressful.
everything is more stressful. And so we think about this in terms of, we think about this, guys, like just think about the thought process. Our world has said, hey, exercise is important. Hey, this is important. And what happens is we get out and we go for a run. We come home, we get a sweat on. We're like, yeah, I did my thing today. We get on the Peloton, we go. Listen, she's cheering for you on the screen. And then we go and we shower, we do it. We go to the personal trainer. The personal trainer has conversation with us the whole time. We feel really good because we paid $20,000 for the year for our trainer. And all of a sudden, if we actually looked, when you started, your VO2 max was 50. And now a year later, after you're done, your VO2 max is still 50. Is that good or bad?
That's bad.
It's bad. If I came up to Ken, I said, hey, Ken, I need $1 million. I'll get it back to you, I promise. In a year, I'll give you that same $1 million back.
Yeah.
No.
Bad return.
So many of us spend time exercising. We don't invest it because we're not specific. And so we don't actually get the result. We don't actually see the progress. We don't actually feel different. And yet we're doing what the world tells us to do. I'm going for the run. I've got the Peloton. I'm on the elliptical. I'm working out every morning. I've got the trainer. I'm doing the things, but what the heck? Because what happens is our VO2 max hasn't changed, and thus no oxygen efficiency has changed, and thus we're not cellularly any healthier than when we started. And so, great question is, how do you measure it? Do not get concerned or exposed to the equations. They're very, very simple. With all of our clients, we do machine graded tests that we send out. So it's like, hey, we throw a mask on, we do a test of failure. We know exactly what your VO2 max is. We know exactly what your max heart rate is. And now we can program. If you're like, hey, I'm not yet there, we can simply do a Cooper test. What this is you go grab a treadmill, you'd go to a track, and you'd run as far as you can for 12 minutes. If all of a sudden you're running and you can't run for 12 minutes, you have to walk, great. But go as far as you can, cover as much distance as you can for 12 minutes, either on the treadmill or on the elliptical. And what you do is you multiply the distance covered by 35.97 and you subtract 11.291. For females, if you don't do that, again, this is just the numbers. For females, if in 12 minutes you can't cover 1.3 to 1.4 miles, you're below 38. For males, if you can't cover between 1.7 and 1.8 miles, you're below 45. And those,
Say again, what number?
1.7 to 1.8
At any age.
at any age. At any age. You're below 45, and thus your ability to carry oxygen into your body is low. Thus, automatically, you're going to see a suppressed HRV because you have an increased stress level. And so when we think about this, this becomes the barometer. This becomes a baseline. So if all of a sudden we were to run we were to do this test 12 minutes every month, well, take 1.65. Then the next month, 1.67. Then the next one, 1.7. Then the next one, 1.71. You're improving. What you're doing in between is working. Thus, I would also expect to see HRV increase. Yeah.
12 minutes, 1.7 miles is a 7-minute mile.
No.
Yeah, 12 divided by 1.7, if I look at that.
No.
'Cause that's like, I'm thinking, holy shit, no one, you know, I did that in high school.
Trying to
What's done that since? Am I looking at it wrong?
Yeah, it's not that fast. Trying to think.
We can talk offline.
We can talk
I want to
after.
understand this because I'm thinking that's a standard none of us can have.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
That's not true. When you think about this, like, come back to it. I mean, at this point, at 40, I'm looking at 2.1 times 35.97 minus 11.291. Yeah, 64. That's so when you think about this, it's only a 10-minute mile.
Cause you have the numbers subtracted. It's not,
Yeah.
they're not running 12 minutes to obtain 1.8 miles.
That's what you just said.
No, because you have you're factoring in 35.97 times minus 11.
Minus your
Got it.
I'm
mileage.
just looking at
You got two coefficients that's bringing in that data.
Minus your mileage.
Yeah.
And so when you think about this, what we're trying to do is we're measuring efficiency. Measuring efficiency of our body's use of oxygen. And so at the end of the day, when we sit here, we look at this, okay, how do we improve VO2 max? Because this guy, remember, this guy, low HRV, 48.3, low VO2 max for where he should have. This guy was at the peak, theoretically, of how he should have been operating. And so how do we improve it? There's three things we can do. Number one is 120 minutes in zone 2 per week. So let's give Steve an opportunity here. So Steve, what's your age?
64
64.
or now.
Or now. So if we're going to get an estimated max heart rate, we're going to go 220 minus your age. Gives us an estimated, okay? Estimated. So 220 minus 64 means that Steve's approximate max heart rate is 156 beats per minute.
Max meaning while I'm exercising.
The max heart rate that your heart could hit is 156. Theoretically. It could be higher or lower based upon genetic predispositions and what you can do, but estimated, right? That's why I always like to test. And it's always I like to have a heart rate monitor and be able to understand precision. 120 minutes at zone 2. What's zone 2? 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. So for Steve, he needs to be at 94 to 110 beats per minute for 2 hours a week. That means that he could do 2 one-hour-long sessions. That means he could do 4 30-minute sessions. He could do 6 20-minute sessions. But for those sessions, he's staying in this heart rate zone for the entire time.
What if you're high? Back off from the exercise?
It's a great question. I don't want to go there yet because it'll be a little
fair enough.
sciencey.
But if it's too low, you're not exercising vigorously enough.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting
You're a little ahead, but that's okay. No, you can't. You know your time doesn't start until you hit 94, and no, if you go out past 110, it doesn't count either. 94 is where it needs to stay. Why? Because this is improving what Gary, right?
Yeah.
What Gary was talking about earlier, which is this is cardiac efficiency. The ability for the blood to pump from the heart. Thus, carrying more oxygen. There's greater efficiency when we're training in this state, in this place. And how do we do it? How do we program this? How do we make sure that's what happens and what goes on? The second thing is 30 minutes in zone 5 per week. What's zone 5? 90 to 100% of your max heart rate. That means that for Steve, he would be at 140 to 156. How do you get there? Interval training, heavy sled pushing, deep level sprint intervals on the bike or on the treadmill. negative repeat intervals, work for 30 minutes or work for 30 seconds, rest for 15, work for 30, rest for 15, maintaining high heart rate zones, 30 minutes a week.
Is that a cumulative again?
Cumulative. Could be 5 sessions of 6 minutes.
And you're listing not either or, you're listing
All of
just
them.
all three.
1, 2, 3. All 3. Third thing. Strength. Oh, we'll come back to this. What is this listing? Cardiac output. High degrees. And so going back to what Steve was saying, here's the problem with how 90% of all of these exercise specialists and all of these group exercise classes have you. You've got zone 1, you've got zone 2, you've got zone 3, you've got zone 4, you've got zone 5. What happens is all of us exercise here in zones 3 and 4. What I call no man's land. Because it's too hard to feel like it's a true recovery that's improving cardiac efficiency, but it's not hard enough to actually generate an increase in cardiac output to become more efficient. And so we're playing in this middle ground that actually doesn't do anything. We're not actually recovering enough to push ourselves hard enough later, and we're not pushing ourselves hard enough later to actually see the benefit of where we're trying to go. And so we need to live in zone 2 and zone 5, not here.
What is zone 1? Just like what we're doing.
Zone 1 is like where we're at now. Anything less than 60%.
Being less than 1, so bad.
And so, here's the funny thing, right? Now we come into strength training. And here's what I see in strength training all the time. And some of you will probably be like, oh, dang, that's me. Is if Steve was to go into a gym right now and I said, hey, Steve, we're going to do 3 sets of 10 on the chest press. I want you to go grab your dumbbells. Steve would go in, he'd grab 30 pounds, he'd go onto his back, he'd rep out 10 reps, he'd put them down, he'd rest. He'd take a break, and then I say, great, Steve, do set 2. He'd pick up those 30 pounds, he'd go on his back, he'd press 10 reps, he'd put them down. I'd be like, awesome, Steve, rest, do set 3. Except this time we're set 3. I don't want you to do 10 reps. I want you to do as many as you can. Steve takes a deep breath, he goes on his back, he grabs these, he starts pressing, he starts pressing, he starts pressing, he starts pressing. 31. What did he just do for the first 2 reps, or first 2 sets?
Warmed up.
Nothing. His body didn't generate any type of adaptation that it had to overcome, and thus he wasn't actually growing. I see this in women all the time, especially. They grab the beautiful pink little weights and do these things. And I'm like, my God, you're carrying grocery bags that are heavier than that. You're carrying kids that are heavier than that. Why are you wasting your time going to the gym? And then in men, I see it all the time too. They do grab 2 30s and they do 5 sets of squats. And I'm like, my God, like you literally lift more at home with your kids playing. Why did you waste your time going to the gym? And so what we need to do is what I call something called reps in reserve with progressive overload. Reps in reserve means that when I would go into Steve, I'd say, hey, Steve, I need you to go in and I want you to grab we're going to do 3 sets of 10 on chest press. Steve would grab a weight that he knew he could do 10 reps with, but he doesn't know if he could get an 11th or 12th. That's what reps in reserve looks like. So what we program is reps in reserve is equal to 2. Because it makes sure that there's no injury. It makes sure that there's not going to be like to maxing out. But all of a sudden, you're going to be pressing. You can do 10 reps. On the 10th rep, you're pressing, you're struggling. My gosh, I probably could have gotten 11th. I don't know if I could have gotten 12th. And what happens is all of a sudden, after doing this for 2-3 weeks, Steve will go, that 10th rep actually felt pretty freaking good. And he's going to now increase the weight because now the 10th rep, I don't know if I could do an 11th or 12th. So the 30 becomes 35s, the 35s becomes 40s, the 40s becomes 45s, the 45s becomes 50s, the 50s becomes 51 and a half, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the progressive overload concepts comes from somebody back in 1982, where what he did was he actually picked up a newborn calf, walked it back and forth in his barn, and every day he did that Every day he did that, every day he did that, every day he did
Then the
that,
calf gets bigger.
because every day the calf is adding a few pounds. And so a year later, the guy's carrying a cow from one side
Oh my God.
of the barn to the other.
Wow.
The example you gave is when you get to the 10th or 11th, you can do them more easily, so you can pick up a bigger weight.
Yes,
Could I accomplish the same thing with just going to 12 and then 14 and 16 and more of the same weight, or no?
no, because now what you're doing is you're no longer strength training, you're now training for muscular endurance. It's a completely different adaptation. And so with a different adaptation, you're going to get a different outcome. And so, which is why a lot of people, we think about maintaining strength. If you actually start to do that and you stayed with the same weight and just went for more repetitions, you actually, in the long term, become weaker rather than becoming stronger. Does that make sense?
So to go back to your pink weight example.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it really resonates with me. Like a bar or Pilates class.
Yeah.
Right? Unless you're increasing weight in those classes, you're not improving your VO2 max at all. You
100%.
might be working on muscle tone, something totally different,
Sure.
but not what you're talking
Correct.
about. Okay, unless, no, that's the only way. You have to increase either the resistance in a Pilates class or the weight in a.
Correct.
What's the equal to?
Reps in reserve equal to 2. So reps in reserve means that there would be, you'd be able to do 1 or 2 more after whatever number. So if I said, hey, we're going to do 6 sets of 5, you would grab a weight that you could do for maybe 6 or 7. Does that make sense?
And if you can do more, you don't have enough weight.
Right.
Oh, correct. And that's what you see all the time. All of a sudden, that's where it clicks for people. Because all of a sudden, the example, like, hey, do 10 reps. Cool. I did them. Keep going.
30, 35, 40.
You ever see, I love the trainers. I love it for the people that are paying the trainers. And all of a sudden the trainer goes and talks to somebody and they turn back. How many reps did you do? 24. Oh, so you're done. You're done. Like, you're not doing your job. Like, all of a sudden you've got these people doing reps that you don't even understand the weight that they're doing. And that's because you're not actually giving the appropriate weight. They're not actually getting the outcomes that they're actually wanting. So this is how we improve.
What's the rep though? Is it 2 sets of 10 to 11 or 12, or is it
This is,
2
and
sets
again,
of 5 to 7?
this is where it always becomes individualized. This is where it always starts to change. For the majority of people, you're looking at 3 sets of 10 reps.
3 sets of 10.
3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 12. Somewhere in there is going to be what you're looking for from a what we call a hypertrophy or strength maintenance mode.
And
so
how many times a week do you need to do the strength training?
we're looking at 3 days a week minimum.
3 days.
3 days a week. 3 days a week minimum. And again, for somebody who's training, we're talking about like a normal person.
Yeah.
For somebody else who's more active, doing more of this, somewhere between 3 and 5. But again, this is where we'd start. So we start to build your program very specifically to you. We start to track heart rate variability improvements. Are we going in the right direction, or do we need to redirect? And so we come to number 2, before I bounce here. So if we know oxygen efficiency is the language based on VO2 max, if VO2 max increases, what happens to oxygen efficiency in the body? Improves. If oxygen efficiency improves, what happens to stress in the body?
Decreases.
If that decreases, what happens to HRV?
Increase.
There we go. Thank you. So now we go to number 2.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Out of left field, does blood oxygen have anything to do with this?
So blood oxygen does not have anything to do with VO2 max. Blood oxygen is the concentration of oxygen that's present in the blood. Obviously, we want to be 98% and higher. That's what we're looking at. It was a big thing during COVID. We saw a lot of people's blood oxygen levels dropping simply because their ability to use oxygen was dropping. Now, when we think about this, VO2 max, somebody with a higher VO2 max can still have a drop in blood oxygen based off of some acute
Like
thing
pneumonia.
that's going on, like pneumonia. And so, again, blood oxygen is something different.
It's on the watch.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, what we tend to see is that they throw everything in the kitchen sink at you, but not actually understanding what any of it means. So we come in here to number 3. Okay, number 3, third component. And they're like, hey, well, understanding this ability to repair is pretty important. The language is sleep quality. sleep quality. Because I see so often people are like, yeah, I sleep really well. Well, how do you know? Well, I sleep 8 hours a night. I fall asleep at 10 and I wake up at 6. But you know what, Justin? When I sleep 6 hours, I sleep 8 hours, I sleep 10 hours, I sleep 14 hours, I wake up exhausted. So here's what we have to understand. Sleep quality is the language in which our body is communicating how well we are repairing our body. How well we are repairing our body. And there's 4 sleep stages. There's a light sleep stage, there's a slow wave sleep stage, there's a REM cycle, and there's a wake cycle. To go through this takes approximately 90 minutes. No matter who you are, approximately 90 minutes to go through each of these 3 cycles, or each of these 4 stages. The difference between a high quality sleeper and a low quality sleeper is how much time is spent in these middle 2 stages. And what we should see is 38 to 50% of our total sleep time spent here. If we're getting less than 38%, this means that we are not activating what I call, or what we call, the glymphatic system. Glymphatic, GL, glymphatic system. The glymphatic system is like a car wash for our cells. The glymphatic system is only active during slow wave and REM sleep. So if we think about this, if we're getting less than 38% in these 2 stages, the glymphatic system is not active. And if the glymphatic system is not active, our cells are not getting the toxins removed necessary, and thus our cells have to then adapt, creating stress, dropping heart rate very quick. So if we come into this and we start to see, okay, a higher number is better, higher sleep quality is better, meaning more toxins removed, a lower is an alert. It means we're not storing memories, we're not getting our body repaired mentally and emotionally and physically. We come and take a look at this guy. He had a low HRV, he had a low VO2 max, and he had a low sleep quality average of 27%. Well, how do we improve it? There's 3 ways. Has anybody ever heard of the circadian rhythm? So really, at the end of the day, what we have to know and what we have to understand is that what circadian rhythm is really just the cortisol and melatonin cycle. At night, melatonin is high, cortisol is low. In the morning, cortisol is high, melatonin is low. And the cycle continues over and over and over again. And so how do we optimize for this to get into those deep stages of sleep, optimizing quality sleep? Number 1 is a wake and sleep cycle optimization, going to bed and waking up at approximately the same time. If you go to bed at 10 p.m., you go to bed somewhere between 10 and 10:30. If you wake up at 6, you wake up between 6 and 6:30. Monday, Tuesday, Sunday, Saturday, September, January, June. Sleep-wake consistency. Easiest thing you can do for hormone optimization. Second thing, 3-2-1 rule. 3 hours before bed, no food. 2 hours before bed, no work. 1 hour before bed, no blue light. 3 hours before bed, no food. So this means, again, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Who goes to bed? Ideally, what time do you want to go to bed?
9:30.
Okay, let's say 9:30. When do you want to wake up?
5:30.
5:30. Great. So what we're looking at here is 6:30, no more food. Why? We have 400 times more melatonin produced in our gut than is produced by the pineal gland in our brain. As soon as we take in food, our body now starts to process and digest, thus taking us out of the rest and digest stage, thus keeping us out of slow wave and REM sleep. Anybody ever had a steak at night and then just toss and turn, just can't fall asleep, or you fall asleep but you wake up exhausted? That's why. 2 hours before bed, no work. Means 7:30. Emails away, text message away, not looking at the schedule for the next day, not trying to figure out how to build your schedule around this stuff, not having conversation with your wife about where you're sending the kids to college, about financial decisions, about all these difficult things that come up because mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, the body doesn't know the difference between these stressors. And if all of a sudden we engage in this, and then we can't get into these stages of sleep. If we can't get into these stages of sleep, this drops. If this drops, the lymphatic system suppressed. If the lymphatic system suppressed, we hold on to toxins. We hold on to toxins. We increase stress. We decrease HRV.
So even a routine email you're suggesting should stop 2 hours prior.
100%. 1 hour before bed, no blue light.
Is watching TV from a distance considered?
Yes.
What if you put on blue light glasses?
That's good.
Really?
It's a way around. Yeah. Yep. It's a great way to do it.
Okay.
So blue light, for every 30 minutes, write this down, for every 30 minutes of blue light exposure after the sun sets, suppresses melatonin release by up to 1 hour. You're on your phone, you're on your TV, you're on your iPad, you're on your tablet, you're watching your phone in bed. 2 hours of blue light exposure after the sun sets, you're looking at about 4 hours of suppression of peak melatonin release. That means you go to bed at 9:30, you're not actually getting peak melatonin release till about 1:30, which only gives you 4 hours of optimal sleep, which doesn't even allow you to get close to where you need to be here. This is how this all starts to stack.
You take melatonin, say half hour before you go to bed.
Worst thing you can do.
I do it every night. I should stop. Is that what I'm hearing?
Because what happens, any type of hormone is what I call the tip of the spear or the top of the pyramid. Testosterone, estrogen, melatonin. And what happens is there's about 5,000 processes that all start with vitamins, minerals, and amino acids that produce these outcomes. Melatonin doesn't create something else. Melatonin's an end of the road product. It helps you fall asleep. It helps with the different neurotransmitters and being able to get blocked in and locked in. And so when we think about this, it's like, interesting. Why are you having to take melatonin? Why are you ultimately going to bed wired and likely waking up tired? Because you've inversed your circadian rhythm. So cortisol for you is actually spiking at night, and thus we need to take an artificial sense of melatonin to actually fall asleep. What happens with melatonin is there's something called adenosine. It's a neurotransmitter in the brain. Adenosine is like a lock and key mechanism that opens up so that melatonin can bind to it. What happens is there's only so many adenosine molecules that's available in the brain. And so what happens is when you artificially supplement melatonin, is that melatonin stays floating around in your body. Has everyone ever taken melatonin? You feel like you get hit by a truck in the morning? Or a melatonin hangover?
Dreams are scary.
Is because what happens is melatonin continues to stay in a pool. And with your brain, with these transmitters, in the morning, they start attacking more instead of allowing cortisol to bind, which spikes energy level first thing in the morning. And so when we think about this, we're doing it backwards. We're doing the things that are actually holding us back, even though we think they're healthy. And so this comes to number three.
Just as a side note on the cortisol, I think it's true that don't have coffee for like 90 minutes until you wake up and let your cortisol level get up, because caffeine can depress the cortisol. Then you end up being.
So really good. This is actually going to come into the AMPM immediate 4. It's really good.
To wrap up what you just said. I mean, you could take melatonin in the morning or just stop taking it for a while?
Stop taking it. I think it's one of the worst supplements and one of the most over-marketed products that you could ever take.
What about magnesium?
Magnesium is great. I love it. You know the difference? So you don't even know the difference of what you just said.
Yeah, one's a hormone.
You're right.
One's a.
One thing that you said is a hormone, an end-of-the-road product. The other thing you talked about was a vitamin, mineral, amino acid, a base level product that creates the processes in the body to actually make more melatonin. Magnesium, specifically magnesium biglyphosate, helps produce the hormone of melatonin because it opens up certain receptors, certain neurotransmitters, certain binding sites. Whereas this one, you're just saying, screw it, I'm just going to take the end of the road product, which confuses the body and stops all the other processes from happening. So when we think about this, now we get into the, again, got to speed up a little bit here. I've gone off topic too many times today. When we think about this, we go in AM, PM, immediate 4. So there's 4 things that we can do. And going back to even your question, caffeine in the body has a half-life of about 8 to 10 hours. So 200 milligrams of caffeine that you take in at noon has 100 milligrams still active at 8 to 10 p.m. at night, depending on your metabolism rate. So we can start to think about, oh my gosh, having 3 cups of coffee, not a big deal. Actually, yes, big deal. Because you never actually get the caffeine out of your system, and caffeine and adenosine, they look the exact same to the brain. And so when caffeine binds to the receptor site that adenosine is supposed to bind to, it actually can't absorb the melatonin. So we think about this, AM, PM, immediate 4, it has to do with light, has to do with temperature, has to do with water, and has to do with air. So at night, PM, light, we want dim lights, low lit lights, things like salt lamps, things like dimmer switches on all your lights, no LED lights. Temperature, we want cool temperatures, cool shower, quick dip in the cold plunge, open your windows in the Michigan winters. Water, we want less than 20 ounces after 5 p.m. Means right here, this is 24 ounces of water. I want about 1 of these after 5 p.m., no more. Because what happens is most of us are like, oh man, I didn't drink water all day. Now I'm going to drink 60 ounces of water and we wonder why we're peeing all night. Air, down-regulating breaths. Down-regulating breaths could be a box breath, in for 5, hold for 5, out for 5, hold for 5. Could be an inverse mountain breath, in for 5, out for 10. Anything else could be down-regulating. Parasympathetic activating. You think about the morning, complete opposite. Bright lights. Get those lights in your eyes. Wake up the sun. The sun's not coming up because of the time change. Flip on all the lights around you. Get light in those eyes. Temperature. Heat. Heat. Do not overlook this. Heat. Sauna. Steam room. Hot tub. Exercise. Something that generates heat. Why? We've just slept all night long. We've gotten great quality sleep. The quality sleep has removed toxins from the body. It's put it into the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system does not have an active pump. It needs some type of way to get rid of it. How do we get rid of it? How do we get rid of toxins in the body? Only 4 ways. Sweat is the biggest one, but urine, stool, and respiration air. Well, when we wake up first thing in the morning, we'll probably go into the bathroom. 1 or number 2, getting rid of both. We're probably getting heat exposure, which is going to get a lot of it out through sweat, which is the majority of where it's going to come from. And then air, we're actively doing up-regulating breaths, which is going to get rid of it. So we've tapped all 4 of bodily, natural, functioning ways to get rid of toxin release. And going back to what Gary was saying, in the morning, you want 20 ounces of hydrogen water with another 10 ounces of electrolyte water.
What's hydrogen and what water?
Hydrogen water is, you can either do like little hydrogen tabs, or you've got an actual hydrogen water bottle, something like this. Fill it with water. Anybody have a little water bottle? Think over there. Little water bottle. I'll show you a little demo here.
20 ounces of hydrogen.
Little
10 electrolyte one.
hydrogen. Then you're going to see hydrogen start to be infused. So basically what hydrogen does is hydrogen changes the molecular buildup of water, which helps it absorb into the cells at a higher level. So you become cellularly hydrated using hydrogen water and then electrolytes, and electrolytes then absorb. How many people ever tried to take in more water in the day and just ended up peeing all day? Yeah, all you're doing is peeing out nutrients because you're not absorbing the water. When you start with hydrogen water and electrolytes, you actually start to absorb it. So what happens when we do this is this naturally stimulates cortisol When we do this, it naturally stimulates melatonin, getting you back on a cortisol and melatonin cycle, optimizing circadian rhythm, means you get into deeper sleep states, which means the lymphatic system operates, which means you eliminate toxins from the body. If sleep quality increases, does the ability to repair increase or decrease? Increase. If it increases, does it increase or decrease stress on the body? Decrease. If it decreases stress on the body, does it increase or decrease HRV? Increase. Increase. Come to number 4. On the way home.
Did you answer his question about caffeine in the morning?
Did I? No. You get all of this done. Bright lights, heat exposure, sauna, steam room, cold plunge, or pardon me, exercise. Get your water in. Get your upregulating breaths in. We're going to do these upregulating breaths here in a second. If you still need coffee, the question becomes, do you do it out of habit because you love the taste of it? You love the artesian component? Great, go with a decaffeinated component. If you still need it to feel like a little zip, go with a single cup and have your caffeine curfew before 10 a.m. And that's going to set you up in an optimal way. So I want us to just take 30 seconds here. I want you to feel like how you're feeling. You maybe feel a little drowsy. We're in a room with LED lights. It's a little warm, getting closer to lunch. Been going for a while, a lot of information. We're going to go through upregulating breaths. So upregulating breaths look like this. 2 inhale breaths, audible exhale. Inhale through the nose twice, exhale through the mouth. So it looks like this. Inhale, inhale, exhale. There you go. That's the pace. That's the pace. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to do 20 breaths. We're going to do 20 breaths together. Okay. 20 breaths together. I want you on the 20th breath to inhale deeply and hold it. And as you hold, I'm going to talk about what you're feeling and what you're experiencing, because you're going to feel and experience something. Okay. So ready on my count. Ready? 3, 2, 1. In, out. 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 Halfway. In, out. 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 All the way in, hold. Show of hands, keep holding. How many people felt lightheaded? Hold on to this. What's just happened is as we were breathing, we became extremely what we called hypoxic. So high degrees of carbon dioxide inside the blood. As we've held this, our body goes, oh my gosh, I now have oxygen. And now this is a hyper oxygenation of the brain. How many people feel like the lights just came on in here? And relax. How many people feel a little bit more energized, a little bit more focused, a little bit more mentally clear? That's what oxygenation of the body feels like. This is the alertness that it can feel like. And so we come to the 4th one, which is nutrients. And it's cellular deficiencies. How many of you have ever gotten blood work done at your doctor? I would hope everybody. Yeah. So what happens is you likely got a CBC or a CMP or a LPP panel or maybe a vitamin profile. The thing about all of these is this is a blood serum panel. A blood serum panel. And what blood serum panels do is they simply look at what is freely floating through the blood. So you can have high levels of vitamin D, high levels of vitamin C, high levels of vitamin K, high levels of iron, all freely floating through the blood. But the body can't pull it from the blood into the cell for the body to actually use. So hydrogen, hydrogen, see that? So now there's hydrogen in the water, easier to absorb into the cell. But going back to this, what happens is you don't have the enzyme or the cofactor to bring it from the bloodstream into the cell for the body to use. So even though it's present, your body actually still thinks you're starving for this. I've seen it thousands of times. High levels of vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin K, iron in the bloodstream, but deficient at the cellular level. So this right here is my actual test from when I was 29. I just gone to all the biggest docs. Everyone would say, hey, your picture of health, your blood work looks great. Actually having 15 cellular deficiencies, key vitamins, key minerals, key amino acids that I'm minus. The building blocks, remember that triangle? The building blocks to all 100% of processes that happen in the body. The ability to sleep, the ability to build bones, the ability to build muscle, the ability to think, all of them. And so we come into this, we look at this, low HRV, low VO2 max, low sleep quality, low deficiencies. And the question becomes, well, how do I improve cellular deficiencies? Well, number one, it has to do with personalized nutrition. Because how many people have plants at their house? Yeah. If your plant looked like this, we wouldn't just go and start spraying it with pesticides or different types of fertilizer. What we'd probably do is go, hey, let's look at the soil. What do you think the soil's deficient in? The internet might tell you, or a botanist might tell you, it's nitrogen, it's phosphorus. So you put nitrogen or phosphorus in the soil, nutrients, that 2 weeks later, your plant looks like this. Well, we're the same thing. We're not starving for calories. We're starving for ingredients. Goes back to the 1980s where we were told the biggest lie in the world, that it's calories over ingredients, not ingredients over calories. Which comes back to the second component, that when the body lacks nutrients, it exhibits symptoms of disease. You're not a diseased person. That's not what you have. That's not what you are. It's that the environment that you've put your body in, it has created an opportunity for you to exhibit an example or a symptom of disease, because it's a wake-up call saying, I don't have the nutrient necessary in order to get where I need to go. And so when we think about this, we come back to this. I want to go to the ingredients for a second. This right here, bread. So many people, I'm gluten intolerant. I can't eat gluten. Gluten's bad for me. You don't actually have an intolerance if you can not eat gluten in America, but you can eat gluten in Europe. What you actually have is not a gluten intolerance. It's actually a folic acid intolerance.
What?
Folic acid intolerance. Folic acid is a man-made nutrient. It's an enriched vitamin. The actual version of folic acid is 5-methylfolate. Women, what are you told to have when you're pregnant? Folic acid. The worst thing you could ever do is put folic acid into your body because it creates toxicity. 90% of us have a gene mutation called the MTHFR gene mutation. MTHFR does not allow us to actually break down unmethylated vitamins. Unmethylated vitamins are all enriched products. So your kids, they're having enriched cereals, they're having fortified breads, they're having enriched whatever it takes, whatever it looks like. And what's happening is, if we actually started to look at it in our blood work, in our cellular blood work, we would look at something called homocysteine. Homocysteine is the measurement of toxicity from fortified vitamins. When that level is high, our body is under constant duress because it's now just a big toxic stew. And so if we are able to, anybody have kids that has like behavioral issues, maybe ADD, maybe an inability to regulate moods and things like that, go home, get rid of all the folic acid foods, get rid of all the fortified and enriched products, get rid of all of them for 3 weeks, watch that child change. Watch that child transform.
Gotta get my wife. I've heard this exact numerous times that I've been trying to preach it. I hear all that. I'm like, everything in that pantry has to go. It's gotta go.
And think about this. It's one thing for us because it has a big impact on us. We know how this is. But now take somebody who's a quarter our size, a tenth our size. And so we start to see this. Why all of a sudden can we eat sourdough bread? Because it's
Flour, water, and salt. You come over here, how many people have ever heard of liquid IV?
Yeah.
Ain't you have enriched flour, which is bad versus not enriched flour? Just saying flour is not enough, correct?
I never say flour.
Say that again for? No, the sourdough you said.
Yeah, sourdough is great. Why can you eat sourdough bread, but you can't eat this type of bread? Because this is made with enriched wheat flour that has all of the other products, whereas this is simply flour, water, salt.
Got it, but it's not enriched flour.
Right,
it's
correct.
whole wheat flour.
Correct.
Isn't most flour all enriched now and half our country we spray everything?
98% of it. You look at
You have to seek it out and find it.
you have to actively be intentional with what you're looking for and what you're actually going for. You can't even say, you go say, I want a sourdough bread. Go look at the ingredients because 90% of people, bakeries that make sourdough bread, it's enriched wheat flour because it's freaking cheap. And people are like thinking, oh, it's enriched with vitamins. It's enriched with minerals. Yeah, they're man-made that your body can't break down, that creates toxicity, that the only other way to ultimately show it is through headaches, is through autoimmune issues, because it ultimately just carries over in our body and it's like an overflow through that cup. Liquid IV, anybody ever heard of it?
Mm-hmm.
It's the hydration multiplier. First three ingredients of a hydration multiplier are sugar, sugar, and sugar. And actually, the actual hydration products are numbers 4, 6, and 9. Do you know who owns Liquid IV?
Gotta be Nestle or Coke or somebody, yeah.
Oh, close.
Interesting.
So when we think about this, element, LMNT, sodium, potassium, magnesium. That's it. 0 calories, 45 calories. It's actually not a calorie issue, it's an ingredient issue. Don't blame the nutrients for what sugars did. And then we come back to this, right? We come back to this. We bounce over here. This is one of my favorites, trail mixes. Oh, I love trail mixes. Trail mixes are awesome. They're really, really great. I'm eating healthy, right? Well, look at this, 28 grams, 340 calories. When we look at this, peanuts, sugar, milk chocolate, whole cashews, colors, blue 1, blue 2, yellow 5, yellow 6, red 40, vegetable oil, cottonseed oil, sunflower oil, peanut oil, soybean oil. It's not a nut issue because when we go over here to pure nut mix, double the grams, same amount of calories.
And what are those ingredients? You can't see.
It's just nuts.
Pistachios, pecans, almonds, walnuts. What we end up finding is that 37% of the calories eaten by Americans are from chemicals and processed food. Don't blame the calories. Look at the ingredients. It's not a calorie game. It's an ingredients game. Because I guarantee you, when you start going and eating whole ingredients, it's really hard to overeat in calories. Another good one. $30 million. $30 million General Mills paid to get this healthy heart on your on here. 2018 that happened. Do you know what happened in 2019? For the first time, go look. Cornstarch and sugar showed up in the first 3 ingredients. Never was that way before. But once they got it, why? More addictive, cheaper to make. Jeez. This is again what I'm coming back to. Vitamins and minerals. Fortified, every single one of them. Calcium carbonate, iron from mineral nutrients, vitamin C, sodium ascorbate. Do we know that vitamin C is not sodium ascorbate, but rather ascorbic acid? That's the natural form of vitamin C. Vitamin B, niacinamide, vitamin B1, hydroxyzide. None of these things are naturally occurring vitamins and minerals. Our body doesn't know what to do with these. I still remember the story. Like I used to be a cereal fiend. I used to love it. Take Cheerios, pour yogurt over top of it. For some reason, I couldn't figure out why after I ate it, I was starving and I had itchiness everywhere.
And I would like, my ADD would take over and I'd be bouncing all over the place. It comes back to that my body didn't know what I was putting inside of it. The guy that was given Ritalin for his entire life, all of a sudden is no longer ADD. All of a sudden, the guy that had dyslexic tendencies and couldn't figure out how to read now can focus and read with no problems. It's not because magically something happened. It's because my body got back to normal and it healed what was actually hurting it. You got Simply Organic, Simply Elizabeth.
I love Simple Elizabeth.
Granola. It's great. High oleic sunflower oil, cane sugars, all these things that your body doesn't know what to do with. This is the best product I've ever seen. Mush overnight oats, coconut milk, rolled oats, blueberries, sea salt.
Mush is the brand name?
Mush, M-U-S-H. I love it. Here's another one. Yogurt, only 80 calories, 12 grams of protein, 4 grams of carbs, no added sugar. Yeah, okay, great. But then we look, it's got gelatin gums. It's got artificial coloring. It has a tapioca starch and different types of seed oil versus something like Siggy's, skim milk, agave nectar, and Madagascar bourbon vanilla. You mean there's real vanilla in vanilla yogurt? Wow. This right here, the podcast with the leading infectious disease doctor in the United States, he talked about somebody who is resistant to antibiotics. He goes, have you been around people who have been sick or having a lot of issues? He's like, no, I'm very diligent on my food. He goes, I eat chicken all the time now. His chicken was full of antibiotics and his body basically became resistant to all antibiotics he was given. This right here is cage-free, free-range chicken. This is now what they call cage-free, free-range chicken. This is grass-fed, grass-finished beef. You now have to look for pasture-raised, farm-raised, grass-fed, grass-finished. Best place I've ever found, Wild Fork. They deliver nationwide. Wild Fork. They instantly freeze it. Wagyu, pasture-raised, grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef, $6.99 a pound. You can't get crappy stuff for $6.99 a pound. It's incredible. It's a nonprofit organization. I love what they're doing. Wild Fork. They ship nationwide. They're incredible. Zero affiliation. I just love them. So we come back to this. Wouldn't it be novel if we knew exactly what we were deficient in from an ingredients list? We knew the foods that were highly potent and highly focused in that area, so we could reverse the cellular deficiencies, so that we could then understand what was actually highly anti-inflammatory and protective for us. Because I hear all the time, oh, cinnamon's really highly protective, and we put it on our cereal, we put it on our oatmeal, we put it in our coffees, we put it in our steak, we just shake it in our mouth because it's great. But actually, it doesn't do anything for us. For this person, specifically, glutathione is great. Well, glutathione is heavy in red meat, avocado, and asparagus. Wouldn't it be novel to actually start putting more of that in and some red peanuts? Yes. Because when we actually know what we're deficient in, we can become really clear on where it is we need to go. And then how many people's supplement cabinets look like this? I try everything under the sun. This is going to be for focus. This is going to be for sleep. This is going to be for whatever. Versus what if we actually took what we were exactly deficient in, we gave it to ourselves, so we got the raw materials to be able to operate at the optimal level. Because just like our business, when we have these things, we have longevity. What happens when cellular deficiencies decrease? Nutrient potency of cells increase. When nutrients increase at the cellular level, does it increase or decrease stress? Decrease. Decreases stress, does it increase or decrease HRV? Increases HRV, what happens to cellular health? Regenerates year over year. And so when we look at this guy, low HRV, low VO2 max, low sleep quality, high cellular deficiencies, and we look now at this guy who has the more stress in his life, going back to what questions that were asked, with an HRV of 103, a VO2 max of 75, a sleep quality of 44, and zero cellular deficiencies. Do you think these two people feel the same? No. Not even close. And the thing about this is this is what it looks like when you focus on a process versus an outcome. And this isn't just my story. When you look at Tim, okay, Tim, 51 years old, 61-year-old biological age. Tim was on testosterone. Tim, for 51, he looks pretty good. But he's like, I still don't feel right. There's something off. Here was his metrics: low HRV, low VO2 max, low sleep quality, high cellular deficiencies. Terry had a personal trainer. She was on Ozempic. She was pre-diabetic. She had a nutritionist that she'd been working with on and off. 44 years old, 64 biological age. She tried keto. She tried low carb. She tried everything. She was frustrated. Come to Dustin, 42 years old, 68 biological age. Blood pressure medications. Type 2 diabetic. Using testosterone. Was just put on a statin. 11 HRV, 39 VO2 max, 19% sleep quality. 1 year later, guys, write down these numbers. 1 year later, 51 years, 65, 44, 64, 42, 68. 1 year later. 1 year later. 38 biological age.
He looks good in the first one. He looks better than that one.
No more testosterone. Off testosterone. Feels better than ever. Terry, 36 biological age. No longer toiling and spending money on things that she didn't know and recognize. No longer pre-diabetic. Dustin. Guy I'm so proud of him. He came down and spent a weekend with me about, 2 weeks ago. Competing in the CrossFit Games for the third year in a row. So proud of this man. They changed their life, not because we solve problems, but because we go back to what is true in creating restorative cellular health optimization, creating routines, processes, and structure. Because it's personalized, it's proactive, it's preventable, and it's performance driven. They've got their strength team, they've got their nutrition team, they've got their mental performance team, they've got their concierge team, they've got their community, making decisions off of data and testing, not off what we believe they should do. In the last 3 years, we've had 13 women come to us who couldn't see a pregnancy through. All of a sudden, we don't cure infertility, but this past Christmas, 11 of them celebrated Christmases with their children. Why? Because we gave their cells back what they needed to actually do what was necessary to minimize the stress on their body. They just weren't able to carry it through. Over 100 men off testosterone, feeling better than they did before. It's just getting back to what the truth is. And so you can live by default or you can live by design. You can live the way the world tells you, or you can live the way that your body was created. You can ultimately continue down the path that you're on, thinking that it's great, thinking that it's okay, or you can take the accessible point of, hey, I can do things that are different. And if we do things that are different, we can realize life in a different way. Your body was created to heal, but it requires us to do things in a different way so that we can realize life at a different level. Thanks, guys.
The folder is a speaker evaluation.
Two things here. So number one, I always give this out right here. So this right here, if you want to scan it, this basically gives you access to all the free resources I have. And I've got too many of them to list. There's a YouTube channel, there's podcasts, there's ebooks, there's files with all of these different things broken out in PDFs. There's audiobooks. There's my 5 books that I have. I've been so blessed. This book was the USA Today Top 50 for last year. So there's so many different things that you can have access to there. If you just simply click it. So that's one thing. Second is I put this sheet in your little areas here, guys. This sheet right here. If any of this is interesting for you, whether you're like, hey, Justin, how would this look like for me? What does it look like to get my testing done? What does it look like to be able to bring together with your team? If you just filled this out for me, what I would do is I will pick this up. And then the thing, if you fill this out, I only do this for Vistage groups, is I will put, before the end of the day tonight, I will put you, myself, and a member of my team on a text message together so we can communicate and set up a call time with you. And just know that if we fill this out, we're going to get on a call with you. We're going to be able just to show you, hey, what is the options for you? How can we help? And then zero pressure, you can go from there. You can, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm in.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Do you just click the bottom?
So after you do this, it's like, hey, where do I want? Like even here, like my team's so good. Like I'm even looking at this, it's like access to discounted wearables. So if you want a free Aura ring, you simply click this and it's going to take you over here. So choose which one you want. Type it in and we'll send you your link. Like, you come here, here's the podcast. You click on this.
Where do you want to know?
What's the,
Go through it. So here's here's the latest episode. You can simply subscribe to it. You see all the episodes. So like, this is like my YouTube channel. You can click on that, take me there, and you can watch it all. So it's super easy to. I just wanted to provide as much value as I can.
What's the catch with getting a free Aura?
Free. So the Aura ring is not free. The Aura is discounted. The Whoop band is free, and then I think their
Is that what you're
subscription.
wearing?
I've got the Whoop band. Yeah, their Whoop subscription model I think is $30 a month. When you do it through that, not only do you get a free one, but I think it ends up being like $17, something like that. So it's just
They both have subscriptions or is it-
join.whoop.com/own it. If you, and again, this is where I said my team is so awesome. If you click that QR code, so you see right there,
Yeah.
where it says get discounted wearables. Got it. If you literally just click that, and you fill that out, my team will send you to get something and they'll say, hey, do you want a Whoop or Aura? And they'll get both your codes. So like that, I'm just so impressed with my team's put together here, to be honest with you. I want it. But it's like that list, the menu, it's like Justin's YouTube channel. Just go subscribe, then you'll have it. My podcast is right there. My books are right there. The different PDF sheets are there. So it's all there for you.
On the strength training.
Yeah.
I understand the frequency and all that, but how long would you strength train for?
Yes, I typically when I come back to, I don't put a time limit on it. I put a, like, what workflow are you going through? So I would say 3 sets of 10 reps to 12 reps per, and then I would put somewhere between 3 and 4 blocks on. So let's say, for example, and again, this is just where I would design it, is if you're going to do a dumbbell bench press, dumbbell bench with a dumbbell lunge, to be by 10 by 10. This is block 1. And I would do block 2, block 3, maybe block 4. So 8 exercises, 3 times, 4 times a week, changing up based off of need. So forth and so on.
I could never get a straight answer on the best magnesium. I've looked at so many combinations. You said biglycinate?
Yep.
Are the others not good?
They're just they're less bioavailable. So meaning that you won't absorb as much of it. And if you're looking for sleep specifically, there's a magnesium spray. It's called EASE, EASE. It's 100% bioavailable, absorbable through the skin. So you don't even put it into your mouth. You spray it on the forearms, back of your neck, and the palms of your feet.
Before we do that,
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
you recommended.
You want to spell that, don't you?
I was gonna say somewhere between 600 and 800 depending on your deficiency level. And so when we come back, this is why your cellular deficiency is so important, because if you are deficient in magnesium, it's likely not a magnesium deficiency. It's likely an upregulator or enzyme or a cofactor that we're missing. And that's what we can start to figure out and start to piece together.
So we're trying for Stephanie has a difficulties. She takes folic acid like 5 times a day.
I mean, for your wife,
I don't know why. I mean,
because all the doctors tell her to.
Well, that's it. She buys these fancy vitamins and it's like a handful a day.
What I would, so just for your wife specifically, like what I would do yesterday is get her, like, we can talk after, we'll get her cellular testing done. Like, we should do that tomorrow. And then we will actually custom compound for her. And once we custom compound for her, it'll help restore cellular health in her. And then just watch all of a sudden fertility levels increase, ability to maintain different cycles increase. Big deal.
Okay, thank you. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question on yogurt. I've been eating ciabatta for years and sugar.
Yeah.
Free. So
Which is great.
so I went to a.
Yeah.
And got something like
Sucralose.
Like that, is that word?
I wouldn't say it's worse. It's on par. And the reason is because now it's a man-made version rather than like a naturally occurring. So what I would always look at, I'd look at two things. Number one is you'd want to go with some type of, if you're okay with like a goat milk yogurt, like a plain goat milk yogurt, it's like by far the best. Or secondarily is go with, a big one that I love. It is Oikos 000. Really great. Again, just plain yogurt. And then the way that you get your flavoring, because I don't know if anybody's ever tried to eat plain yogurt. It's kind of like
I put
just bitter.
granola and
Put your
banana.
put your berries in. Try to put frozen berries in because frozen berries actually hold nutrients longer, but also then change the flavoring better. And then put some type of raw nut mix in, and it's incredible. So go with a plain yogurt of some type, and then flavor it with those items.
Do you have a recommendation for,
Those issues, but I just want to talk.
Awesome.
so I imagine that I'm gonna wanna
you.
go out a lot.
Yeah.
And reading every single label at every single store is going to be time consuming,
Yep.
right? So what are the avenues that we can take to like see a lot of options that are healthy as opposed to
Yeah, really great.
going one by one?
Yeah, so number one, at your home, you're gonna wanna to start this, you are going to want to go through your entire house and your pantry and look at the ingredients list, and you'll probably throw out 70% of what you have. And I'm just being completely honest. If you want to commit to actually changing it. And the crazy part is, and Dave, like I'm serious about this, and even kind of what you're talking about, you take the food out of your kid's diet for 3 weeks, watch your child change.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Like watch your kid change. Like you will be like, who is this? I don't understand the meltdowns, the fits, the inability to go to sleep, the all over the ness place gone. And it's just because you've given them a different fueling system. And so the first thing I would do, like spend the time and go through it all. The second thing I would have you do, download the app Yuka, Yuka. And what Yuka does is Yuka actually rates. I don't agree with all of their rankings and ratings, but generally it's pretty good. And then anything below a good score for them, I think below good is 70% or less. Anything below good, they actually give you options and alternatives at the bottom that are better, which is actually really nice. The second thing that I would say, first thing, go through your entire pantry, get rid of anything that has, number one, 3, 4 ingredients or more. Just get rid of it, like garbage. Second, download Yuka, be able to help guide you at the store. Third, buy all your meats from Wild Fork. It's amazing. The fourth thing, anything that you're getting from a packaged thing or looking for kids snacks or things of this nature, go to Thrive Market.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of Thrive Market. Even to get onto Thrive Market, what you have to do is you have to pass so many different like regulatory things, and also they only usually take boutique or bespoke companies. So just my smaller batch.
Okay.
So again, they probably have a bigger focus on quality food.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I go to the farmer's market locally, literally miles away. There's a farm where I buy meat.
Yeah, it's
I
great.
can see them right in the field.
It's great.
Could they still be feeding the cows and birds negative stuff?
I mean, so here's what you're doing and where you're getting your meat is probably good. I mean, at the end of the day, it's farmer's market. It's great. The one thing I will say, if you're getting fruits and vegetables, it's the only thing that I would highly recommend to go organic because the skin is porous. And so there's actually a study done and they took strawberries. And what they did was they actually squeezed the strawberry. They didn't wash it. They squeezed the strawberries. And with what came out, they could have taken that, put it back in and sprayed the fields with pesticides. And so when you come back to this, any type of fruit, vegetable that you get, my wife and I would go to the farmer's market, but when we come home, take a 1/4 tablespoon of baking soda and a quarter cup of vinegar, put it into a sink basin. We just dump everything in. We let it sit for about 30-45 seconds. We just kind of mix it all up, then get a sieve and kind of scoop it all out, wash it off, put it on water. At the end, we'll look at it and there's a greasy film across the top of the water. That's all the glyphosates, all the pesticides, all the sprays. And we also find like little microbugs. So just something,
So we,
vinegar and baking soda.
how much?
What was the, how much for?
Quarter cup of vinegar and about a quarter tablespoon of baking soda.
Thank you.
I don't put the baking soda.
Yeah, you should put baking soda.
Shut the water up without.
Yep, and when it combines with the vinegar, it creates this like emulsion factor that just kind of bubbles everything over.
Because we use vinegar, but according to your vegetable a lot more.
You put it in
Quarter cup of baking soda.
Well, that's
a quarter cup of.
Nope, just
Quarter teaspoon.
yeah, tablespoon.
And what do you mix it with? Water?
Water.
How much water?
I just usually put in like half a sink full
Oh.
and toss everything in. Yeah. Yep,
And how long do you let it sit?
minute. Just let it kind of do its thing, and then when you take it out, make sure when you take it out on the sieve, you just rinse it. Yeah. Awesome.
Even the organic, bioorganic.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Still would be good.
Yep.
I always protect them.
Yep, because even when it comes over, it's crazy, just I don't know scientifically what is on, because at the end of the day, organic, non-organic, like who knows what anybody's doing anymore.
Right.
And so all I know is that when I go to the farmer's market and it's pesticide, hormone, and glyphosate free, and I come home and I wash it, there's milky films on the top and minute little bugs, and I'm just like, God, like, what is happening?
So you put it in a colander and you let it sit or?
Yeah, so what we do is we just literally, I dump it all in, like open up the packs of blueberries, strawberries, apples, peaches, carrots, broccoli, everything. I just kind of let it sit. Just go with my hands and just kind of like a big whirlwind for about 60 seconds. I let it sit. I grab a colander. I start scooping it out. I've got towels laid out. Just dump it, let it dry. And then from there, we throw it away or throw it in the fridge.
So you don't rinse it?
Sorry. After we
Rinse
scoop
it
it
in
out,
the
we
colander.
rinse it, lay it out, and away we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Literal answer.
Yeah, sorry, my fault. My fault. I skipped a step. Breathe in, breathe out.
Just a lot of stuff, like on your webpage, a lot of this.
Yeah, so even in like I said, with that QR code, what's nice is the best thing to be able to do. And again, as we coach you through this, as we guide you through this, this is what we do. This is what we do for thousands of people, is just helping them regain their health and make what seems complicated and overwhelming now just life, and just like feeling like I have control back. Alana said that. It feels like I have control, I have clarity, I have direction. That's what we help you do, is help you understand this. But at the same time, the way that you do this also is you immerse yourself in it. Like, I would encourage you, if you're a podcast listener, like my podcast, I just think is so educational and it's awesome. It's entertaining. Try to keep it entertaining, light and fun, but at the same time, really in depth and like actionable. So if you immerse yourself in that, if you immerse yourself in the books, if you immerse yourself in the free guides that are there, you immerse yourself in the YouTube channels and just kind of taking stuff in, it becomes second nature because you start to hear it. And then when you start kind of being coached and guided along the way and learning, it's like, my gosh, like this is so simple. Of course, this is how this should be done. Like, this makes so much sense. Because you're just coming back to understanding this thing. It's not me coming up here saying, this diet's the best, this is the best way to work out, this is the best way to eat, this is the best way to sleep. It's like, no, let's figure out what works for you so we can build frameworks around what your body's communicating to you. And when we can understand this thing, we can be empowered. So.
Are you selling those vitamins, those supplements, are those your supplements up there?
So we don't create, the answer is yes. We don't create supplements. We create unique N of one solutions with our products. So once you do, like in all of our coaching and all of our programs,
We include everything. It's like all in one bespoke. And so when we do all of your testing, we will custom compound that product for you based upon that. And then we reformulate that every 6 months when we retest, because your body adapts, your body changes, and the therapeutic dosing of what you need today is not what you need 6 months from now. So that's constantly evolving, constantly changing, constantly there. So when we get on a call, we'll chat about like how that looks from both coaching versus just going that route. But there's, multiple ways we can do it.
Were we finding out about lunch?
Yeah, we're good. Are you staying for lunch?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay. I don't, did he get a menu?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet,
Yeah.
super.
He is Chris on the. I am Chris.
Okay,
I'm Chris.
Chris?
Well,
there was a extra sheet that had Chris on it, so he used that one.
He's Chris on Pierce.
When we go out there, I think we're just gonna go out and up on our front lobby is where the food's at. You guys, okay. Should have your name.
All right.
This is great, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And give me cycle now.
No.
So first thing to do is just get testing done.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll do, so like again, when we chat in meetings, you'll just have a better outline and say, okay, so this is what the options look like from testing. Which testing will be this, our cellular micronutrient testing. We'll do your cellular antioxidant, inflammatory capacities, and then from there, we'll actually custom compound for you. So we'll make sure it's I'm making rain. So here's a cool thing. So I founded the company. My wife is a fiction, but that's so she new system. She saw whatever business was.
Listen, there's a part of reality.
6 to 8 months. But I was they don't get shut down. I don't know what the hell I did, but
That's the shoe company that provides shoes.
yeah. So she goes, I just quit work. Executive vice president. The next step was she was taking over worldwide. Like she would have been the young vice president, the youngest president that fashion industry's ever seen at 40. And she was like, I just so it's even like changing people's lives.
Thank you for sending me that stuff on the 15th. I didn't quite get to it yet because I got some issues.
It is surprisingly good.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with what I got out.
Great relationships,
You know what I did?
great books.
I also joined, I don't know how they found me, like email marketing or whatever,
It's just very, very.
but I ended up joining a founders network.
I think resonates with a lot of people.
It's like,
Nobody's
a startup here, you know, I'm like,
And so that's why we get a lot of people.
so this is all about starting things, and you still have a pretty high net worth. I think you still have to get to a 5 million EBITDA or whatever. Like this is like, it's a Slack group, it's basically a mastermind, so now I'm gonna be in that and this.
Very cool.
It's a lot. I wanna make sure I'm not busy trying not to be busy. It's loading more and more on my plate.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to do it what I can. Yeah, but I appreciate that.
Thank you. Need your rest. Higher. Yeah.
I'm never gonna be the same again. And actually determined to change. And then you have just that top. And they're really mark.
Did you notice any changes? Yeah, lost a lot.
Cool. None of that. No energy level was incredible.
Yeah.
With rates in there, kind of work and.
Yeah.
We're racing, kiteboarding, surfing, all that stuff. All right. But no, maybe it sure and everything going.
Yeah.
And I have a plenty of docs and all that stuff. So I'm interested in knowing about this stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody's telling me what exactly should be learned.
Yeah.
When I'm trying to apply for 20 years, like, so I know that I can't hide that.
He concentrated that. I just remind blood work and most part. I didn't like the way the results were.
Yeah.
So like, the last meeting, I don't know what's, it's great.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not saying I have nothing wrong with.
I know.
Yeah. I don't think it's anybody.